You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Body and Soul Gym in the heart of Talpiot. Great machines, excellent staff, and wonderful classes such as Pilates, yoga, and kickboxing. Give them a call at 02-678-8861. Once again, that's 02-678-8861. www.body-soul.co.il. Once again, that's www.body-soul.co.il. That's Body and Soul in the heart of Talpiot, which is great for your body and your soul.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed Frequent Flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Schutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Terry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.IsraelGym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
DJ Venom, DJ Venom, DJ Venom, DJing parties throughout Israel, birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music and DJ Venom will turn your event into the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Louis Live here on IsraelSportsRadio.com and TuneIn Radio. It is a pleasure to broadcast out to everybody. We have a great show tonight. It's a special 3-hour show from now until 8 p.m. local time here in Jerusalem, Israel. We're going to get things started momentarily with the play-by-play man for the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks, of course, didn't exactly have their wishes of the playoffs go the way we would like it against the Celtics, but nevertheless a pretty good season, and they have some great talent on their ball club. So we're going to get things started and call. We're not right now. Okay, hold on. Okay, so we're going to be dialing up right now as we speak.
Hello.
Hi, am I speaking with Bob Rathbun?
Yes, this is he.
Hi, Bob. You're live on Israel Sports Radio and Louis Live. How you doing?
Very good, thank you.
It's great to have you on. We're very excited. We know the Hawks just got bounced from the playoffs, so we're sorry about that. But I think they showed that they're a lot better team than people thought.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about that, particularly given the injury situation when you lose an all-star center for basically the entire season and significant injuries to other starters along the way, Joe Johnson, Kirk Heinrich, Marvin Williams, the list goes on and on. A key backup in Zaza Pachulia to win the equivalent of 50 games in an 82-game season and battling Boston as they did, less the Game 4 blowout, I think proved to a lot of people that this is a pretty special ball club.
Absolutely. I mean, this team also is young. Marvin Williams was a second pick in that crazy year when Bogut was one. If you look at that draft, that's kind of a weird draft to think that those guys were 1 and 2. Bogut's never really been able to live up to his hype. He's had some good years, of course, but those injuries, he's kind of seemed like he has very bad luck. That one injury with his elbow is devastating just to watch on TV. And I know the Hawks fans are kind of waiting for Marvin Williams to become the star that he was projected to be when he was picked second overall. But I want to go back to what you're talking about. Of course, Al Horford, your center, being out for 4 months with that torn pectoral muscle, which is a really rough injury for our listeners out there who don't know much about it. A lot of guys in the NFL, when that happens to them, they're out for the season. So give credit to Al for coming back, and not only coming back, but of course having that great 19 points, 11 rebounds, shutting down Rondo on that last play in Game 5 that gave the Hawks some confidence and excitement for the next game. I want to talk to you about Al Horford and what he means to this team and how different this team looked with him on the floor. I mean, it was amazing to see the confidence of other players and what this guy means to this team. So if you could talk about Al, of course, you're the play-by-play guy for the Hawks. You missed him all season. So when he was back, what did it mean to you specifically and you think the overall fan base of the Hawks?
Well, I thought it gave the Hawks a tremendous lift. I think we're seeing, as Al becomes a leader on this ball club, sort of the spiritual leader in addition to what he can do on the floor. His heart, his desire, his passion for the game, pretty exceptional. And you could see that, I thought, at the end of Game 5 when it reminded me so much of Al's rookie year when the Hawks took the Celtics to 7 games. And he was the guy getting the crowd fired up, getting his teammates fired up, a lot of enthusiasm and just raw emotion out there. And that's what the Hawks were missing. This guy's been an all-star now twice. He incredibly, to me, did so well in this series with Boston, given the fact that he didn't have a whole lot of time to really get physically ready, much less basketball ready. This guy had his arm in a sling for 6 weeks and had to rework his entire left arm and shoulder to get it back to where he could even put 2 hands on the ball to go up and dunk it. And as hard as he tried to get ready, it was a very, very slow process. And, he finally, after Game 2 up in Boston, before the second game at Boston, which would have been Game 4, he said, you know what, I've just got to give it a go. Our season's on the line. I'm not 100%, not close to 100%. I've still got a lot of rehabbing to do, but I got to get out there. And I think that decision, even though he played in Game 4, gave him some confidence that he took with him to Game 5 and Game 6 that put the Hawks right on the brink of winning a couple of crucial games.
Right, and I mean, yeah, that's what you were saying. It's an amazing way to come back and really show your team that you didn't, you're not giving up on the season. You still have hope, and I mean, he comes back and you expect him to be a factor, but way more than that. In Game 5, he was the man. He led that team, and of course, it was a very close game. And we actually had on the play-by-play guy for the Celtics last week, so it was exciting to ask him about what he was thinking during that last play in Game 5 when Rondo stole the ball. He's coming up the court, and of course all the Hawks fans are thinking, oh no, we don't want to go out this way at home with Rondo hitting the buzzer beater. And then Al Horford steps up in front of him, makes sure that he's a big body, and I mean, Rondo's a guard and he's a big guy, so usually those guards can, kind of creep along or go around them. But no, Alford Horford kept his body right in front of Rondo, and Rondo ended up turning it over, and that was a victory for your Hawks. I want to go ahead.
Tremendous quickness. I mean, you're right. To see that kind of quickness out of a big, out of your 5 guy, is remarkable. And I think that's one of the things that was really missing from the Hawks this year is that there are very few NBA teams that have a power forward and a center that can keep up with Josh and Al. And that's a major weapon that's taken away from the Hawks. There are nights when Al's going to be undersized, to be sure, where he's going to struggle in the pivot against a few guys. But this league is not that big anymore inside. And a guy at 6'10", with quickness like Al can really do some damage, and you saw it on that play.
Right, and yeah, I mean, it just was really a gutsy performance. I remember they were saying on Fox, the sideline reporter, if you would call him that, was saying that they spoke with Horford, and he said he was so sore after Game 4, and he wasn't even sure if he'd give it a go in Game 5, and wow, I don't know. You can't say enough about him. And, of course, he comes from greatness. He was at Florida with Joakim Noah and Corey Brewer. Brewer hasn't maybe lived up to what the expectations, but Noah has, definitely getting a huge contract from the Bulls and being a key player on that team the last couple of years. And, no one really expected that out of Noah. A lot of people thought he would be a guy who brought a lot of energy and maybe a guy who'd come off the bench, but he's been a starter. I wouldn't maybe say he's been an all-star, but he's been a double-double machine and a guy that I know Derrick Rose truly enjoys playing with.
No question.
The next thing I wanted to ask you about, and it's something when I was analyzing the roster and taking a deeper look at it, this team has that veteran leadership. These guys who, you look at the roster and you go, wow, these guys have been around for 14, 15 years on successful teams. So I want to start off with Eric Dampier, who came over from, he's been on so many teams. Last time he was on Dallas, but I don't think he was on Dallas last week. What team was he on last?
He was with Miami.
Right, he was with Miami, right, last year.
Tail end of last year, yeah.
Right, and of course, even a guy who, even more old school than him, the 6'6" great out of North Carolina, Jerry Stackhouse, who back in the days was a stud and a great player. So Stackhouse didn't really play, but Dampier got some time on the court. I wanted to ask, and of course, you can't forget about Tracy McGrady. He's 14 years in the league, 32 years old with all those knee injuries. Do you think that the Hawks management brought these guys in to kind of be the veterans of the team, and these guys have been, to the playoffs, and they can kind of mentor all the young guys? Like, I mean, I guess Joe Johnson's not that young, but still, he still seems kind of young. But I'm talking more of the young guys like Teague and Horford and Williams. Why were these guys brought in, the older guys?
Well, first of all, to begin with Eric Dampier, his addition to the roster came late after the season was well underway, and it came as an insurance policy after Al had gotten hurt. They were down to Zaza Pachulia and Jason Collins as their 2 big men. I guess you would consider Ivan Johnson in that realm, although Ivan is grossly undersized to play in the 5 spot.
Yeah.
So Damp was brought in as an insurance policy in case anybody else got hurt. And of course, lo and behold, Zaza went down the last few weeks with his foot injury. So that's why Damp was brought in. But to speak to guys like McGrady and Stackhouse, these guys really picked the Hawks. We'd like to say we brought them in, but really they were playing on the veterans minimum, could have gone anywhere, and they picked Atlanta because they wanted to be a part of this team at this particular time. And I thought the contributions of a Jerry Stackhouse in the clubhouse were just second to none. He's such a class guy. He's such a team-oriented guy. He was fabulous in our clubhouse. He was great for the younger players, led by example. And even though he didn't get on the court for the last few games of the Boston series, just his presence really to the team meant the world. And I must say, Tracy McGrady, although his minutes were not that big, still, his body has just betrayed him over 15 years in the NBA, and that was the case with the Hawks. He he had a very difficult time in this compressed schedule, back-to-back games with travel, et cetera. But in the playoffs, got opportunities. In Game 3 at Boston, he was magnificent. Had 12 points in the first half, and wouldn't you know it, rolled his ankle right at the end of halftime when Rondo ran underneath him. And to be honest with you, it wasn't the same the rest of the series. Had McGrady's ankle been healthy, we might have seen much more offense, because certainly his knowledge and wisdom was key on the court for the Hawks, and a steadying influence down the stretch, particularly in the opening games of this playoff series.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And Tracy McGrady still, there were some games where he's still a shooter. I mean, that's something that he's still capable of doing. He still can get hot, and I think it happened a couple of years ago when he went on one of his runs. And even 4 or 5 years ago, he was still a great player. And he's a guy who can, on some nights, probably give you 10 to 12 points in 20 minutes. So that's not the greatest thing in the world, but he's still a good guy you want to have on your team. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about, Teague, Jeff Teague, that is, from Wake Forest. Do you think, I'm going to tell you my opinion, I'm very curious to hear yours. I mean, this guy this was his third year in the league. There were times where he seemed to struggle, and there are times where, for me personally, I wondered what this team would be like if they had I don't want to say a better point guard, because Teague is a great point guard, but if they had a guy with a little more leadership and more of a veteran. Do you think that would help the team? Because they have a very great core in Josh Smith, Al Horford, and Marvin Williams. And I just got the feeling sometimes that maybe Teague wasn't the right guy. I know he's still very young, 23, 24. But let's say this team had a guy like Nash. I'm just throwing it out there. Do you think that would change the team in a way, change the culture? Would they get more wins? I mean, is Teague the right guy for the future?
Well, I must say, even at Steve Nash's age, he would be an asset to any team that he went on, whether it was the Hawks or anybody else.
Right.
He's one of the greatest point guards.
Okay, so we just got disconnected. We're going to call him right back. So we will...
Hello?
Hi, Bob. I think we got disconnected, so I apologize about that. But go on with
no problem.
What you were saying.
Yes, about Teague.
Right.
Here's my take on Jeff. This was his third year in the league, but in my mind, in my opinion, this was his rookie season, because he really didn't play at all his first year. Last year, he was given the opportunity and didn't really grab the brass ring in practice, etc. Got his opportunity against the Bulls in the playoffs last year only by injury to Kirk Heinrich, who tweaked his hamstring in the final game, the final minute of the Orlando series. So when Teague got that opportunity, he took it and ran with it and played 6 unbelievable games against Derrick Rose in Chicago, which set the stage for this year. Now, again, you go to camp, is it going to be Kirk? Is it going to be Jeff? Well, Heinrich was eliminated from the equation because of his shoulder.
Right, his injury.
That he had surgery on, so he was unavailable until the end of January. So by default, Jeff Teague became the starting point guard. And I think what Jeff learned this year is that to be a starting point guard in this league, you've got to bring it each and every night. You've got to play at a high level, because your opponent is going to be a great point guard playing at a very high level. The things that you mentioned are certainly crucial in his development. Being a type A personality, being a leader, being the guy who's in charge. A lot of this seems to me to be a little foreign to his personality. Teague does not seem to be the guy who's boisterous, not that he's overbearing, but he's very quiet, reserved. And I'm not so sure you can be an effective point guard in this league with those personality traits. You can be good, but can you take your team and make everybody else better? I think that's something that Jeff needs to work on, because his physical tools are off the chart. I mean, he can go end to end. He's got a good handle. He can shoot. He's got all the traits, the physical traits you're looking for. To me, Teague's improvement has to be in the leadership area And I think if that can be accomplished, then the Hawks have got themselves a first-class point guard.
Right, and at Wake Forest, he had a couple of guys who were talented. I believe James Johnson, who played for the Raptors last year. So he had some guys at Wake Forest. And of course, his brother decided to enter the draft this year. A lot of people weren't sure that was really the right move, but he did play well in the NCAA tournament. And the high school he went to, I was in Indiana. I lived there for a while. Pike High School is a great high school full of a lot of tradition. A lot of great college basketball players have come from Pike. So and it's Indiana, so you play against great high schools where Eric Gordon went, Greg Oden at Lawrence North, Eric Gordon at Lawrence Central, I believe, and then the Bloomington schools, of course, Bloomington South, Bloomington North have had Jared Jeffries, Sean May. So Indiana is a great place to to make sure that you're playing top-notch high school basketball. You're playing really against future Division I players, and not only that, but future NBA players or future, overseas players. So, yeah, I was very curious to get your opinion on T, because it's just interesting watching him play. Like you said, he doesn't seem like he ever gets very vocal or ever gets into things, and that's going to lead to our next question. The draft is coming up pretty soon. What do you think that your Hawks will be looking for? They're pretty set down low, but do they need an insurance guy down low? Do they want to get a backup?
Well,
what do the Hawks need?
We got a lot of questions to answer before we get to the draft, to be very honest with you.
Okay. Let's start with that then.
The general manager's position, Rick Sund has to decide whether he's going to come back. He's been offered by ownership to come back. He's yet to make a decision on his future. That directly impacts the head coaching situation, where Larry Drew has a team option for next year that hasn't yet been picked up. Then you get to, if Rick stays, then probably your player personnel people stay, and that impacts the draft. The other thing that you got to look at with this Hawks team is that we've got 9 free agents on this ball club. And where do you begin to sort out who's coming back and who's not? McGrady, your whole bench, basically. McGrady, Heinrich, Pargo, Dampier, Willie Green, Jason Collins, Redmanovich, Stackhouse. All these guys are free agents. And a lot of them are toward the end of their playing careers. Now, it would be interesting to see, indeed, if these guys come back for another year or not. So there's a whole lot of questions to be decided before we can even think about the draft. If you ask me right now, with 9 free agents on this ball club, it doesn't matter which way they go. They got to get bodies. So your first-round pick and your second-round pick are almost guaranteed to make the ball club.
Right, and I mean that's great for the guys who are hoping to play immediately and get a chance. So, but what do you think? I mean, people are saying that this is might be one of the greatest drafts in the last 10 years, with all those guys who came back: Sullinger, Jones, and then of course Anthony Davis in the loop and Andre Drummond. I mean, a lot of guys with a lot of raw talent. If you look at pick 3 through 15, a lot of the guys, some of the guys that are going to go 3 could have gone 15. I mean, it's a very, very deep draft with a lot of great underclassmen. Harrison Barnes, who was supposed to be a god in college, never made it. But with this type of game, he's a big guy, 6'8", very athletic. You never know. He could come to NBA and be an all-star. I'm one of those guys who believes that in college he wasn't in the right system because there were so many other great guys around him at North Carolina. But if he goes to a team where they really can let him do his thing, a team that's maybe struggling, he can really be a great player. So could you, I'm not putting you on the spot, but can you throw out some names of some guys that, or maybe not even names, but positions that you think the Hawks will be looking for? That'd be great. I'm sure our listeners would really appreciate that.
Well, you look at our roster and you look that the starting unit is going to be back. Unless they decide to make a trade, these guys are locked in because they all have long-term deals. Josh Smith enters the final year of his contract next season, but everybody else is tied up. Teague is coming to the end of his rookie contract, but he's got the option to come back, the team option. So, when you talk about positions and where the Hawks are going to be drafting down toward the bottom, it's almost, it goes into that category of best player available, because I don't think you can assume that any of your free agents are going to come back. You've got to work at least from that standpoint. I'm sure that won't be the case. Some will stay, some won't. But at this point, as we speak on May the 15th, I have no idea who's going to be back. So going from that status, you line up your draft board and you say, okay, here's the best big guy, here's the best power forward, here's the best. Let's see what we've got coming back that has given us some indication of who's going to return. And then you kind of go from there. I will say this about the draft, because I broadcast a lot of college basketball too.
Right.
The key in a successful draft, unless you're picking in the top 3, 5, maybe this year it's a little bit deeper. Some years it's you're drafting a top 2. You're not going to get a player who is going to miraculously turn your franchise around. And I don't even think that's going to happen this year with Anthony Davis. That kid's a ways away from being an impact player. He's not going to make if Charlotte gets the number 1 pick, he's not going to turn the Bobcats into a contender. That's just not going to happen.
I completely agree.
So the key to me in watching these kids over these years is sometimes I think you're almost better off not being drafted. I mean, it's great to get the guaranteed money, but from a long-range perspective and from a team-building perspective, you want to go to a team that has a need for your talents. For what your skill set is, where do you best fit in? That, to me, is more of an indicator of success in the NBA than anything else. Because a lot of guys, there are no bad players in the NBA. There are plenty of bad teams. And sometimes players get stuck on bad teams because they never are able to showcase what they do best. I take a guy like, Tyson Chandler, for example. He is a defender and a rebounder, period, right?
Yeah.
What he scores is on a lob dunk, okay? Everything he shoots is going to be within 2 feet of the basket. That's why he shot 65% from the floor this year, okay? Everything is going to be right around the hole. But look how long it has taken teams and himself to figure this out. So now, Tyson Chandler, you know what you got, and now the Knicks are the beneficiary. Dallas was the beneficiary last year. So I think one of the secrets to the draft is to identify guys that fit your coach, his system, the guys you've already got. And if you're a player, you better hope that is a match that you get right away. So I think it's a very complicated thing. It's certainly not an exact science. Because, you look at a guy like Ivan Johnson on our team. Now, if you lined up 500 basketball players in the NBA, where would Ivan Johnson fit in? Okay, he's 28 years old. He's undersized at 6'8". He's kicked around every league practically known to man. Okay?
Right.
But he finally got an opportunity where his skill set fit in with a team that had a need.
Interesting.
So he's in the big leagues.
Right. You
couldn't find Ivan Johnson, on a scouting report if you wanted to.
Right. No, that's a great point.
I mean? So it's I just think it's a matter of right place, right time, right skill set, right attitude, right teammates, right coach for it all to click. I just don't think you can, in this day and age of basketball, you just can plug in a player other than, the elite that's coming out of a draft every year, that you could just plug in a guy and say, bingo, we got our guy. I just don't think that works anymore.
Right, and that's very interesting analysis.
All right, Bob, we have to wrap things up. We certainly appreciate your time here on Louis Live and Israel Sports Radio. And when you see Joe next time, tell him the Phoenix Suns fans still remember him. And, well, I don't know if we miss him, but we do remember him.
Well, I tell you one thing. I do say this, and I've said this to Joe. Had he stayed that next year in Phoenix, I think they would have won the championship.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right,
Absolutely.
Nash.
I really think so. He was that good and that key to that team. I mean, he had he had it rolling, and the Suns had it rolling, and not for a very controversial finish, against San Antonio. They may very well have won the NBA championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was weird because I think we offered him more money than the Hawks, but he wanted to kind of start his own stardom. He didn't want to be the fourth or fifth guy on the team, and I kind of understand that. But it would have been fun to have him on the ball club and give it another ride and see what we would have done. Bob, we certainly again appreciate the time. This is so much fun. We'd love to do it again sometime when you're available.
Anytime.
Okay,
great talking with you guys.
Thank you,
All right,
Bob. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right, be well, Bob.
Okay, bye.
All right, that was Bob Rathman, a voice of the Atlanta Hawks here on Israel Sports Radio.
Let's take a break, Ari.
Yes, we're going to take a quick break and load up our next guest. We've been having a lot of fun so far. So
right,
we're gonna,
great analysis there. What did you think of that, Ari?
Well, he really, like you said,
the draft stuff was interesting.
The draft stuff very interesting. I think I agree with him. No pick in the draft is going to turn around the Charlotte Bobcats at this point. But what I really noticed is he got a great announcing voice, and that's certainly key.
And we'll hear that at 11 with Dan even more so.
All right, and on the other side is going to be another talk show. Well, another broadcaster person,
right.
Larry Kruger, who is hosts a show on Sirius.
No, he used to host.
He used to host Sirius.
I'm pretty sure he's a friend of Roxy, so we'll get into that as well with him.
Okay, great. So Larry Kruger's on the other side. You're listening to Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Radio.com.
Body and Soul Gym in the heart of Talpiot. Great machines, excellent staff, and wonderful classes such as Pilates, yoga, and kickboxing. Give them a call at 02-678-8861. Once again, that's 02-678-8861. www.body-soul.co.il. Once again, that's www.body-soul.co.il. That's Body and Soul in the heart of Talpiot, which is great for your body and your soul.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed frequent flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Shutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Harry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.israelgym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Louis Live, we're going to be dialing up our next guest. He is the host of the Gary and Larry Show on KBNR Radio. And we'll be dialing up this gentleman and discuss some California sports. So it'll be a lot of fun here on Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com. And thanks again to Bob Rathman, who is the voice of the Atlanta Hawks. He was great in the last segment. Hi, is this Larry?
Yes.
Hi, Larry. This is Ari Louis, and you're live on Louis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com. How you doing out there?
Good. How you guys doing?
Doing great. It's great to have Larry Kruger, the host of the Gary and Larry Show. And let's talk some NFL going on in the California area. San Francisco 49ers had a chance to get Peyton Manning, and it was an interesting decision why Peyton didn't go with the Niners. You figure one play away from going to the Super Bowl. You figure Peyton would want to go there, a little more of a sure thing than the Denver Broncos. What do you think at the end of the day was the reason for Peyton Manning not picking the San Francisco 49ers?
I think John Elway I think, was a little bit desperate to get Tim Tebow out of Denver. And I think, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, and
Larry, can you hear us? Okay, we're having a little bit of difficulty with the line. Let's just see if Larry comes back in a moment. Larry, can you hear us? Okay, we're going to dial him again and try to get up back Larry. Looks like might have gotten a tunnel, something to that effect. So we'll dial him right now and try to get Larry Kruger back on, discussing again Peyton Manning.
This is Larry Kruger. You've reached my phone.
Okay.
It's possible maybe his phone died because it just went to his voicemail. We're gonna try him again.
We'll take a break and try to get Larry back on. You're listening to Louis Live in Israel, sportsradio.com.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Body and Soul Gym in the heart of Talpiot. Great machines, excellent staff, and wonderful classes such as Pilates, yoga, and kickboxing. Give them a call at 02-678-8861. Once again, that's 02-678-8861. www.body-soul.co.il. Once again, that's www.body-soul.co.il. That's Body and Soul in the heart of Talpiot, which is great for your body and your soul.
Okay, back here on Louis Live, we're going to try our Larry again, and hopefully we'll be able to get in touch with him and talk some NFL out in the California area. So we're dialing up Larry as we speak, and hopefully we'll be able to get in touch with him, talk about Peyton Manning and Randy Moss and the Niners' chances of going to the Super Bowl. Haven't been.
Hello?
Hi, Larry. Sorry about that. Looks like we lost you there. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, California, cell phones in California.
Absolutely. We can certainly relate. Here in Israel, we have a similar problem. So you're mentioning that John Elway really wanted to move Tim Tebow out of Denver, and that was the main reason why Peyton Manning went to the Broncos.
Well, that is the primary reason that Elway was so compelling in his pitch to Peyton. And I think that won over Peyton, where I think Jim Harbaugh was kind of selling Peyton on a, come here, we're ready to win. But, I think it was Jim Harbaugh was trying to sell the competition a little bit more, where I think, the Broncos were more willing to kind of roll out the red carpet for Peyton. And I also think maybe Denver was willing to pay a little bit more.
Also, I agree again. I think the Elway thing was the major factor, even if logically, in the mind-wise, it would make more sense to go to the 49ers. I think something in Peyton's heart wanted to please John Elway, something to that effect. It was the final straw in the decision to go to the Broncos. Now, everyone remembers Kyle Williams last year with the 2 fumbles. Where is he at right now? Is he looking to put everything behind, or is that just going to scar him for the rest of his career?
Well, he's a marginal talent to begin with. He's not a big guy. He's not overly physical, and he's got good wheels, but not great wheels. So, he's a borderline NFL talent to begin with. I think he's still on the roster, and it sounds like they're going to bring him to camp and give him an opportunity to compete. But they've surrounded him with so much talent on the depth chart that it's in all likelihood he'll be a training camp cut this summer.
Wow.
And I do expect him to get a shot somewhere around the league and maybe even take advantage of it. He's a decent return guy. He just got caught on a bad day.
Yeah.
But absolutely, his bad day cost the 49ers a trip to the Super Bowl.
Right. I mean, certainly those were two huge mistakes, but I just felt so bad for all those death threats on Twitter, and I just thought I had a lot of sympathy for him, but I certainly can understand if he ends up not going back with the team on the San Francisco 49ers. Now, the 49ers picked up a big new addition. I don't know how much he has left in the tank, but Randy Moss, a few years ago with the Patriots, great, certainly tailed off since that record-breaking season for touchdown catches. What do you think Randy's impact will be to the San Francisco 49ers this season?
You know, first, just to finish up on Kyle with on the Twitter thing. I mean, shame on people who go on Twitter and start saying some of the things that people say. And it would be great if there could be some kind of Twitter police that would yank people's tickets or actually make them accountable for their statements. But right now, it's just kind of it's sad at what it is. I mean, I'm on there and I enjoy it, and it's got its positive uses. But people who condemn people on Twitter, you know, there's a fiery place for them someday waiting for them.
Absolutely.
As far as Moss goes, I think he's going to have a big year. I really do. I think, you know, he's a guy who at times in his career has lacked motivation, and he's now hooked up with a head coach who, you know, is Mr. Motivation. So I really think that, you know, Randy Moss doesn't have quite the wheels that he used to have, but he's still plenty fast enough, and I think he's going to have an impact. I think he'll actually be one of their more productive receivers this year. But it's an interesting question because there's a lot of people that feel that he'll make no impact and that he won't even make the team. I can look at it the other way. I look at a guy who's incredibly talented, sometimes questionably motivated, and now he's got full motivation. I think he'll have a big year.
Yeah, I think Randy knows this is his last chance to win the Super Bowl or to put his final stamp on his legacy. I don't know how much time he has left in the National Football League. Now, Bountygate, if you will, came out regarding with the Saints, and of course the Saints played the Niners in the playoffs last season. Was there any sense on the broadcasting side or any type of media side that this was going on before the whole world found out about it?
No, not at all. And this is kind of the perfect storm. I mean, everybody who's covered the NFL knows that there's always been these informal bounties because that's just the way position coaches are when they're around incredibly competitive guys. I bet you the degree to which bounties have existed in some form would shock people if they really knew it. But the Saints took it to a different level where they took pen to paper, and we have audio, tapes of Greg Williams, saying go after guys' ACLs, and that's just not part of the football culture. And I know people think it is, but it isn't. I mean, he really is a rogue, isolated guy. There are guys saying, we'll give you $500 if you make the sack around the league, but I really don't believe there's anybody who's saying tear this guy's rotator off, dive at this guy's knee, rip up this guy's Achilles. I just don't believe that's happening. So, but there was no indication at all. And if anything, the 49ers got the biggest hits in that game as Dante Whitner had the big knockout blow in the first quarter on Pierre Thomas that KO'd him from the game. So if anybody was the aggressor in that game, it was the 49ers.
And I noticed that we watched the game here in Jerusalem, stayed up nice and late to watch. It was a great game, went back and forth, and Vernon Davis at the end, that was just spectacular, and especially find out what happened with Bountygate. Very happy the 49ers were victorious. Last question about the 49ers before we move on. Alex Smith, how is he going to react to Peyton Manning coming in almost and taking his job? Clearly, the Niners wanted Peyton Manning, and Alex Smith last season really kind of put it together. I know somewhat subpar his career before then, had a lot of different coordinators as part of the issue, I believe. But how is Alex going to respond to potentially his job not being there for him, according to management?
Well, I think it should motivate him a little bit. I think he understands that he had a good year, but he has not arrived. He worked with Tom House, the baseball mechanic guru, who basically works with starting pitchers on their form, worked a lot with Alex on his throwing motion, and trying to iron out some of the bugs in his release. I think he's going to continue to get better. I think Alex Smith is a guy who football is very important to him. He's very athletic. He's very smart, and yet he doesn't have natural instincts or natural throwing arm talent. But he's getting better, and I think you're going to see him make incremental improvements. They now surround him with better weapons, and I think he'll actually. I think he's one of those guys that eventually is going to be there at the end. Eventually, he's going to get it done. I really believe he's probably going to win a ring at some point. But it's going to be a long, hard journey, and there's a lot more pressure on him this year because the feeling last year was that he didn't have the weapons. The feeling this year is he has the weapons, and now can he do more with them? But I think the 49ers are primed to make a significant step forward this year because they do have one of the NFL's better coaching staffs, top to bottom. And last year with no off-season practices, no OTAs, no mini camps, I think that hurts teams that have great coaches.
Well, that was very interesting stuff there. Larry, you are on right now with Raphael Geller. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We love having people on from the San Fran area. You guys seem to be really fun. We have Roxy Bernstein on a lot. He's a great guy, and we're very happy to have you on as well today.
Well, anytime. Anytime you want me, let me know.
Okay, great. So Ari was examining the NFL with you. I want to talk about your hometown San Francisco Giants. Roxy and I spent a while looking at them and kind of analyzed them. So I want to get your take because it's always interesting to see what two people in the San Francisco media think. The thing that jumps out to me, I'm a huge baseball fan, and I remember the days of Mark Mulder and Barry Zito, and it's very ironic that Barry Zito is, I believe he's leading the team in ERA. Him and Matt Cain are number 1 and number 2 in ERA, but as a San Francisco fan, do you say to yourself, finally, it took a billion years, but finally Barry Zito is playing the way he should? I know it's only been 6 weeks, but it must be, you must be pretty excited to see that. I mean, as a fan, you're paying this guy $19-20 million a year, and finally he's pitching, 2.50 ERA. So, I mean, can you tell us your reaction and the San Francisco fan base reaction to Barry Zito's success the first 6 weeks?
Well, I think people are cautiously optimistic. I mean, you can't go back in time and change the way things were. I mean, the way things have gone. I mean, it was a bad signing. It will remain a bad signing. They paid him a ton of money. He hasn't been worth it. He was a pitcher who was in decline in his final couple of years in Oakland, and Billy Beane was shrewd enough to recognize that, and the Giants simply were not. So that aside, here we are 5 years into a 7-year deal, and I think both sides would like to make the best of it. I asked the Giants ownership how they felt about Zito coming into the year, and they said, hey, this guy strikes the right chord off the field and says all the right things and is a positive in the clubhouse, a positive in the community, is always acted like the consummate professional. I mean, they left him off the World Series roster in 2010. People forget that.
Right.
And so, so I think the Giants' approach has always been, hey, you know what, let's hope for the best. Let's try to surround him with the best, people to try to help him become as good as he can be. He also worked on his mechanics this offseason. And there's some extra tilt on his pitches. His velocity is still not great. It's never going to be great. He's got to hit his spots, and he's got to work quickly. He's got to do a lot of the little things that you don't have to do when you're throwing 93, 94. He's got to do that because he's throwing 87. And so, and yet he's hit his spots. He's made some big pitches. He got a big win over the weekend in Arizona where he battled through. He gave up, I believe, 3 runs in an inning, and a 3-run lead became a 1-run lead real quick on him in that game on Sunday. But he battled back, he persevered, he came out through another couple of shutout innings, and got the ball deep into the bullpen, and the Giants wound up coming away with the win and the series win to boot. So, I think his teammates like him. I think the fans would love to. They've wallowed in the negativity. I think the fans and Barry would love to turn the page and have kind of a happy ending. Whether it can or not, time will tell, but he's off to a nice start.
Absolutely. And, what's interesting about this team is this seems to be an issue that's really been going on in San Francisco for a while. It's the run support. If you look at the records of a lot of your starting pitchers, not very impressive record. But then you start taking a deeper look and you look at the ERA, and it's very impressive. I mean, of course, Tim Lincecum's really struggling. We're not going to get into that because we actually just had a segment about that a little while ago. But guys like Matt Cain are playing really well. Of course, Matt signed the contract, but his record's 2-2. His ERA is under 2.30. His WHIP is .74. I mean, as the ownership and as fans, what does this team need to do to kind of help out the pitching staff? Also, they have 5 great starting pitchers. I'll say great because all of them are very capable, and they've shown it. And if Barry Zito pitches the way he does, this could be a very experienced starting pitching rotation if they make the playoffs. They can somehow get a wild card, or if the Dodgers fall off. The batting is struggling. But, let's give a shout-out to Melky Cabrera because this guy really deserves it. The Yankees kind of gave up on him. Then he went to the Royals, and he was on the Braves, I believe. But he's really found a home for himself in San Fran. He's only 27 years old, and he's hitting 340 almost for your club. So first question, I guess, is what do they need to do to kind of improve the batting and the hitting? And the second question for you, Larry, is what's going on with Melky, and how come he's hitting out of his mind right now?
Well, I mean, they clearly need to get offense. I mean, this is not a new story. I mean, the Giants have ranked 23rd or lower in runs scored in Major League Baseball in 6 of the last 7 years.
Wow.
So it's an annual deal. They don't hit. This year they haven't really fielded well either, and it's really surprising. They're above 500. That's how good their pitching really is that they haven't fielded, they haven't hit, and yet their pitching, even despite losing 3 guys out of their bullpen to injury, hasn't missed a beat. So the pitching's where the team was built, and that will, they're just going to have to find a way to incremental improvement offensively. I mean, they're going to have to find guys. They really don't have anything coming out of the minor leagues. They're going to have to do whatever they're going to do offensively with the guys that they've got, or make a trade. Melky, of course, came over in the offseason in the Jonathan Sanchez trade, right, which was, maybe arguably Brian Sabian's best trade. I mean, Melky Cabrera's on pace for 240 hits, and
wow,
and an incredible year, a 390 on base, 350 type average. Eventually, I mean, this guy could win a batting title. I could see it in the future in San Francisco. He's made to play in the park offensively, defensively. In fact, one of the things we're going to talk about on my show today is it time to talk contract terms with Melky? Is it time to give Melky 3 years and $29 million or whatever it's going to take to get him signed? Because he is a free agent at the end of the year, and he's arguably the best player on the team right now. So, so there's, as far as what's the key for Melky, the key for Melky is always in the same key. When he's in shape, he's an awesome talent. He's got a big-time outfield arm. He's a legit switch hitter who hits righties and lefties equally well. He can run. He can play center field. He can play the corner outfield. He's a doubles, triples, home run, extra base guy. He can steal a base. Very heady player. Came out of the Yankee farm system. And he's a guy that, people forget. Melky Cabrera was cut by the Atlanta Braves not that long ago.
Right.
And it was because he got out of shape. And he was out of shape. Melky is not nearly as good a player. I think it embarrassed him. I think it taught him an important lesson. He showed up last year in Kansas City in great shape. He had a 200-hit season. I think Kansas City made a mistake in trading him to the Giants, and I think he's going to have a nice little 5-year run here with the Giants where he's one of the National League's more consistent outfielders, and I think they will sign him to a long-term deal. But, yeah, being in shape is key. When he's in shape, he's really a very, very, top-tier type outfielder. And as far as what they can do offensively, I mean, they're talking about Kevin Youkilis in a trade. They're talking about trying to add something to their lineup. And they got some bad news last night, and that Freddie Sanchez, who's been battling a shoulder and hasn't played since June 8th of last year, now has his back is locking up on him. They've been trying him out at third base in their minor league rehab stints. I think it's very likely that we've seen the last of Freddie Sanchez as a major league ball player, and that just adds to their I'm sure their drive to pick up a player or two and trade, because Freddie Sanchez won a batting title, and he's a big-time offensive player, and was a guy that they thought was going to hit 2-3 in their lineup a lot of the year. Now there's a good chance they won't have him at all. So
right, and
they're challenged there.
Right, and Freddie Sanchez, as you mentioned, had that great year with the Pirates. But yeah, it's very interesting what you were saying about Melky, because it seems like the Yankees kind of gave up on him, went with Gardner and different guys in the outfield. And I bet the Yankees have been struggling with hitting. So I bet they wish they had a guy who was hitting 340 right now. So that's kind of interesting to see how that all played out. And Melky's still young. This is baseball. We're not talking NBA or NHL or whatever. This guy is a 27-year-old. So he still could have another 5, 6, 7, 8 good years left in the tank. Even more. We'll see. So that's very interesting. Next, we want to move on real quick. We have about 3 or 4 minutes left. So for 2 minutes, we want to talk about we're happy to have someone on from San Francisco. Of course, Golden State, I guess, is Oakland, really, but still, I know you probably cover them. We had the Milwaukee Bucks director of player operations right after that Andrew Bogut-Monte Ellis trade. So we kind of heard from a Milwaukee side. They liked adding Monte to the game because he can shoot. He's a great scorer, he's a great athlete. But I want to hear from you. Were the fans happy with his trade? Bogut's a guy who, when he got traded, didn't play for the rest of the year because he had that broken ankle and he had that horrible elbow injury. Do you think this was a good trade for the Warriors?
If Andrew Bogut's healthy, it's arguably a very good trade, but that's a huge if. I panned this trade on my show the day after, and we actually had the owner of the team on our show a couple days after that, and the fans, for the most part, were, negative at first to the trade, and it's understandable. You're trading an all-star type, at least an all-star type player, the Warriors' best player for a number of years in Monte Ellis, to a team for Andrew Bogut, who has been injured the last 2 years and wasn't going to play a single game the rest of the year. So anytime you're trading for an injured player who's not as exciting as the player that you're trading, it's going to be reacted negatively by the fans. That's just the bottom line. But I think the Warriors found themselves in an interesting position, and still do, in that they were trying to improve their team for the future, and at the same time keep their lottery pick. Well, Chris Mullin made a trade a few years ago acquiring Marcus Williams, the former Connecticut point guard. In that trade, he traded a conditional first-round pick in this upcoming June NBA draft. And the way it works is if the Warriors are picking 1 through 7, they keep their pick. But if they fall to 8 or lower, their pick goes to Utah. So, the Warriors were desperately trying to keep that pick, and the idea they came up with was, let's trade Monte Ellis. We'll get an asset in Bogut that we can eventually use down the road, and since he's not healthy now, it'll help us tank games. And of course, they didn't admit to that or in any way endorse that. But that's basically essentially how it came down. It would help them finish, poor enough so that they could maintain their pick. Now, we'll find out on lottery night. There's a 30% chance that somebody behind them in the lottery jumps in front of them, and they still have to give away the pick. But they have like a 70% chance of keeping that pick and staying at number 7, and of course a 3% chance of jumping up and taking the first pick. As far as the trade, 2 guards are dime a dozen. Monte Ellis is an undersized 2 guard. Andrew Bogut is a skilled, center who could play offense and defense. Was 3rd team All-NBA just a couple of years ago. But it's a significant risk. I thought this was a horrendous trade for Golden State from the standpoint of they took on a player in Bogut who makes $13 million a year, who's been hurt the last 2 years, has 2 more years left. And the Bucks were desperately trying to get out from underneath that commitment. They're fearful that Bogut was going to have 2 more injured years and that they would be on the hook for almost $30 million more of dead money. In addition, the Warriors took Steven Jackson off the Bucks' hands in that trade. And anybody who knows the NBA's inner circle knows that Scott Skiles and Steven Jackson, got together about as well as oil and water. And so the Warriors rode in and alleviated the Bucks of a very ugly, situation there. And and basically still didn't wind up winning the deal because of it. I mean, the Warriors wound up taking on more money. They took on the older player. They took on a hurt player, and they took on a cancer player and some bad money on that contract. 2 more years at I think it was $18 million left over 2 years for Steven Jackson, who they then pawned off to the Spurs for Richard Jefferson because the fans, already knowing Stack Jack from his days here, were anti him coming back. So overall, I thought that, if Bo gets healthy, you can make an argument that the Warriors, it was a good trade for the Warriors. I think for the Bucks, it was a good trade because they get out from underneath Bogut, get away from Steven Jackson, and they also didn't have to trade any of their young pieces. I mean, they didn't have to trade Elon Urasova. They didn't have to trade, they didn't have to trade Brandon Jennings. They didn't have to trade, any of their top guys, really, any of their top young players. So, and the Warriors threw in Epe Udoh, I should say, the former Baylor Bear power forward, who was really starting to come of age as a guy who could run the floor and rebound, block shots, and play a little bit. So, not crazy about that trade, but if Bogut can play like an all-star type talent, maybe it will turn out well for the Warriors. But we're not going to know on this trade until November, December of next year.
Great point. I mean, very well said. Great analysis there. Larry, we have to run. We certainly appreciate your time here on Louis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com, and we love to do it again in the future.
All right. Anytime. Give me a call. We'd love to do it.
All right. Thank you, Larry. Be well.
You too.
All right. That was Larry Kruger, host of the Gary and Larry Show. And we're going to not break for commercial. We're going to dial up our next guest. And
right, a very special guest, and he's been on the show before, and we're very happy to have him on. And Ari's going to start off with some baseball, and we're going to transition to the NBA.
Yes, what we're going to do right now is dial him up. Now, he is a very busy person, but this is a very unique situation because we're actually going out to Canada.
Right.
Rafi's home base.
Yeah.
So we're going to, for those who don't know, it is Dan Schulman coming on. And
From
Dan,
Toronto, guys. He is a Toronto man, worked for TSN, worked for my Blue Jays. Yeah, we're calling him right now on his Toronto number. We're very excited to have him on. And
we got so much great response. Hi, Dan.
Yeah.
Hi, Dan. This is Ari Louis with Louis Live and Israel Sports Radio. You're live on the air. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great as well. We had so much great feedback from the last time you were on. We were so happy that you were able to do it again. And let's just get right into it. You did the Sunday night game between the Rangers and the Angels, and you had a great theory of why Albert Pujols struggled so early in the season. And I wanted to know if you could share that with our audience.
Well, I just think that, for 11 years in St. Louis, he's a big personality, and everything was exactly the way he wanted it to be. The clubhouse, the schedule, the media is fairly easy to deal with in St. Louis by Major League standards, and I think he's out of his comfort zone being away from St. Louis for the first time. I think there's pressure on him to live up to a contract with a new team, and I think it's gotten in his head a little bit. I don't think there's anything physically wrong with him. He hit great in the spring. I just think that he's a very proud guy, a sensitive guy, a creature of habit. And when he got off to a slow start, he put a lot of pressure on himself. And I think most of the problem is probably mental right now.
Do you think there's any part of Albert that wishes he wouldn't have left the St. Louis Cardinals?
Yes, I honestly do. Wow. And just as a baseball fan, not that anybody cares what I think, but I wish he hadn't left St. Louis. I think it's great that a guy like Derek Jeter is going to play his whole career with the New York Yankees. Some things are supposed to be a certain way, and he's more than entitled to go out and get the highest contract that he wants. But if one team, I understand there was a big difference in the contracts too between the Cardinals and the Angels, but he still would have made a couple $100 million with the Cardinals. I think his time with St. Louis would have gone better than his time with the Angels is going to go. And at the end of it, there would have been a big statue of him right beside the statue of Stan Musial. But I honestly think that Albert had a battle between his pride and his brain. And I think his pride won out. I think it's unfortunate. I think he would have been better off staying in St. Louis. And I think for a lot of these guys, there's a good lesson here. The grass isn't always greener.
Yeah, well said, and I'm a big Cardinals fan. I was sad to see him go, but my Cardinals are first place in the Central, so we're certainly enjoying what we can with Carlos Beltran's playing great, and the pitching, Lance Lynn, is all really coming together. But before we go to the Cardinals, since you did the Sunday night game with the Rangers and the Angels, you got to see Josh Hamilton, who's just red hot right now, chasing the Triple Crown. I know it's too early to really say if he can get the Triple Crown or not, but he is 15 RBI ahead of Cabrera and Encarnacion. So let's just ask you, what are the chances of Josh Hamilton winning the Triple Crown in the American League?
I think there's a decent chance. If you ask me, bet yes or no, I'd probably bet no, because so many things can happen. First and foremost, he's got to stay healthy. Right. If he's going to win the home run title and the RBI title, he's got to play in at least 140, 145 games. He can win a batting title playing in 125, but to drive in the runs he's going to have to drive in, he's got to stay pretty healthy. If he can stay healthy, he's got an unbelievable chance, because as you said, some guys, he's got a pretty good cushion in some of these categories right now. Right. Jose Bautista's off to a slow start. Prince Fielder's off to a slow start. So he's got a pretty good lead on some of the traditional power hitters. I think there's a chance. And he hits in a great ballpark for hitters. He hits in the middle of a great lineup. He's in a contract year. Everything points towards him having a monster season. It's something I'm looking forward to following about as much as anything in baseball this year.
And as you mentioned, in the contract year's walk year, if he, I don't know, let's say he doesn't win the Triple Crown, but at this point, the leader to win the MVP, what is he going to be worth on the free agent market?
Well, that's another complicated question because of his past, because of the eviction issue.
Right.
And I think the Rangers want to keep him. I know the Rangers want to keep him. I think it all comes down to the language in the contract. I don't believe that the Rangers are just going to offer him, say, 6 years, $150 million, whatever the numbers are. I think that they'll probably want some language in the contract saying, the first 3 years are guaranteed, and year 4 depends on if you're, healthy in year 3, and so forth. Just some protection on their end. And if I'm Josh Hamilton, I would hope that Josh would understand that, given where he's been. The issue is if the Rangers offer him a contract with some language in it that protects them a little bit, and a team like the Yankees or the Dodgers or somebody comes along and says, the heck with it, we'll just give you 6 years, no language at all, 6 years guaranteed. How do you turn that down? I think the best place for Josh Hamilton is Texas, and like Albert, but for different reasons. I'm hoping Josh Hamilton stays where he is. But at the end of the day, if another team blows the offer out of the water, that's tough to turn down.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree that I would like to see Josh stay in Texas. Could win 2 MVPs out of 3 years. It's a shame what happened earlier with his career at with the alcoholic addiction issue, because he could have been a Hall of Fame player when it's all said and done. Let's go to the National League. My Cardinals, Carlos Beltran's playing great, making his case for the MVP along with Kemp and the Dodgers. And my question to you is, where is this coming from for Carlos Beltran? It seemed that he somewhat tailed off the Mets, got traded last season, signed with the Cardinals, and now he's back where he was almost with the Royals and then with the Astros for that short period before he went to the Mets. So what do you think is the difference for Carlos Beltran right now?
I think one big difference is he's healthy. If he's healthy, he's a great talent. He always has been a great talent. There are times to me where I've looked at him and you wonder what's inside him. What's beating inside your heart? What's ticking inside you? What makes you go? I think when you get into an environment like St. Louis, it's such a unique environment. The fans are so passionate. The team is good every year. The team matters so much to everybody in that city. I don't think you can help but get caught up in it, swept up, and your adrenaline picks up, your enthusiasm picks up, and that sort of thing. There's a long, long list of players who have gone to St. Louis and performed better there than they did elsewhere. And I think it's because of the environment. I really do. I think it's, the NFL has a team like that in the Green Bay Packers who are just such a part of the fabric of that city and that state, that area, that I think it really elevates the level of play for a lot of the players who get there. So I think that's part of it with Beltran. I think part of it is being healthy. And he's in the middle of a good lineup. I mean, they've got a lot of good players. And I know they lost Pujols, but bringing in Beltran, having Freese healthy for a whole year, getting Alan Craig back now, who's such a good hitter, and nobody knows about him. He's such an under-the-radar guy, but he's such a good hitter. I mean, they're legit. And I believe there's almost a part of the Cardinals who are relieved that Pujols took the offer from the Angels. And I know that sounds crazy because he was the best player in baseball for the last 11 years. But if they're paying him $25 million a year, that would hurt them in so many other areas on their roster because they're not going to spend $150 million like the Angels or Red Sox or some of the other teams are. So I think they're almost relieved because they can spread that money around and get stronger in 3 or 4 other positions.
Well, I actually championed that the Cardinals shouldn't pay him that type of money, and I was sad to see him go. But, again, right on the money that when you tie up so much money in one player, you really can't go after other players. Want to go to the National League East. Nationals are first place there. Not surprised to some people, to the mainstream maybe. Strasburg's been pitching great, but want to go to Bryce Harper because he's had a little bit of everything happen to him. Hit by Cole Hamels. Cole admitted to it. Then Bryce decided to hit himself with a bat and then hit his first home run of his career, all at 19. And we've heard about Bryce since he was a teenager, still a teenager now. Are we making too much hype out of Bryce Harper? It seems there's so much attention on this young man, but the potential looks that to be a great, fascinating career. So what are your thoughts about Bryce Harper and all the media attention on him?
Well, I think the media attention, it's not like he shies away from that. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated at the age of 16. He got his high school equivalency, his GED, so he could leave high school a year early and go play junior college ball. He's represented by Scott Boras, who's an agent who, he's kind of notorious for going after every last dollar and really pushing the cause of his client as much as he can. And Bryce is a cocky kid. He really is. So it's not like he's run from the attention. The hype, might be a little bit over the top. He's got phenomenal ability. He's got an unbelievable arm. He plays the game hard. He runs the bases as hard as anybody in baseball right now. But he's going to have his ups and downs. He was a catcher for his whole career. Now he's an outfielder. It's going to take some getting used to. And his swing is more force than finesse. And he's going to have some slumps, I believe. He's going to tear the cover off the ball, and he's going to have some slumps. He's going to see a lot of off-speed pitches. He's going to have to continuously make adjustments to what Major League pitchers are doing to him. And I think it's going to be really interesting to track him. This is an unusual situation. This is a 19-year-old kid playing for a team that is a contender right now, in spite of all their injuries. And I think he's going to have his ups and downs for a couple of years. Eventually, I think he's going to figure it out and become a top player. But I think early on he might have his ups and downs.
We're speaking with ESPN's Dan Shulman right now on Louis Live and Israel Sports Radio. Dan, we'll go back to the American League for a few questions, then move on to the NBA playoffs. The Indians, not that the AL Central is so strong right now. I mean, the Tigers are in second and don't have such a good record. Right now, the Indians 19-16, first place, and don't really have a lot of household names. They have Derek Lowe, good ERA, 2.47, 5 wins. But outside of that, I don't see a lot there for the Indians. How do you explain their success? I know, again, it's early in the year, but still first place in the Central. I don't think a lot of people had the Indians first place at all at any point of the season.
No, I think they're a young, improving team, and they play with some confidence. But they're playing in a division with some bad teams right now, and I think they're taking advantage of it. I mean, they've got some good players. Asdrubal Cabrera, their shortstop, is a good player. Travis Hafner is relatively healthy. That hasn't happened much lately. Carlos Santana, their young catcher, is a good player, and they're getting some good pitching as well. You mentioned Derek Lowe; he's having kind of a rejuvenated season, 5-1 with a 2.47 ERA. They've got a good closer in Chris Perez. They got a good bullpen. Some again, not some household names, but guys like Vinny Pastano and Joe Smith. They've got some good relievers there, and I think they're just kind of the best of a bad bunch right now. I would think that the Tigers will go on to figure it out and find a way to win that division. But, Minnesota's terrible. Kansas City's been bad. The White Sox are doing okay. They're a bit of a pleasant surprise. But it's just not a great division right now. And I give Cleveland a lot of credit. And I think the longer they hang around, the more confident they become. And with that second wild card right now, you never know with teams like the Red Sox and Angels struggling.
Right. With that second wild card, all these opportunities really open up. And my question now goes to the AL East, also similar, because I think at the beginning of the year, of all the teams people predicted to be in first place, I don't know how many had the Orioles. The Orioles, though, have a great record, 22-14. And also I'm curious how they're doing this. Adam Jones kind of fills up the stat sheet offensively, leads the team in average home run, RBI, runs, and stolen bases. So my question for you is, how are the Orioles doing this in the East with the Yankees and with the Blue Jays in that division?
two ways. Power, they hit for a lot. You mentioned Adam Jones has 10 home runs. They've got a lot of guys with power. J.J. Hardy's got power. Matt Wieters is a very good catcher. He's got power. Nick Markakis hit some home runs. Nolan Reimold is on the DL right now. He hit some home runs. That and their bullpen. Their bullpen has been excellent. That having been said, at the end of the year, I've been wrong before, but I'd be shocked if the Baltimore Orioles are still there. I think it's a nice story, and they're playing great. But at the end of the year, if they're one of the 5 teams that make the playoffs, I would be absolutely stunned. I think the Yankees have enough good pieces; they're going to figure it out and do well. Tampa Bay is just such a solid team; they're going to figure it out and do well. So, for Baltimore to contend for a playoff spot, at the very least, they're going to have to beat out Boston and Toronto in the American League East. I think they're much improved. I think they're potentially a 500 team, but I don't think they're ready to contend for the playoffs just yet.
And speaking of the Yankees, Mariano goes out for the rest of the year. He's at 42 years old. He says he's coming back. Do you think that's pride talking, or do you really expect number 42 back in the lineup as a pitcher for the Yankees next year?
I think he's going to try. I don't think he wants to go out this way, and I've got as much respect and admiration for Mariano Rivera as I've ever had for any athlete. The way he's handled himself, the way he's pitched, the class act that he's been, the big outs that he's gotten. I mean, he's just easily the best reliever of all time. And I think he's going to try to come back, and I wouldn't put it past him.
Hi, Dan. You're on right now with Rafael. We want to thank you so much for joining us. We know you're really busy doing MLB, NBA, and all that great stuff for ESPN. So, again, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
All right. My pleasure, guys. Take care.
Dan?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. We were going to talk about the NBA, if that was okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was goodbye. All right.
No,
Let's go a couple more minutes. I've got another interview to do, so let's go a couple more minutes.
Okay, let's go.
Go.
Okay, sorry, my mistake. I was just introducing myself. Okay, so we'll talk real quick. We have a great series with the Lakers, or let me say a supposedly great series. It's supposed to be a great series. Last night, the Lakers just got crushed, and the Thunder look like they're going to sweep. I just want to get your thoughts on that. Do you think the Thunder are going to go 4-0? Can the Lakers win one game? Is Kobe going to do his psychological stuff where he gets Pau and Andrew to play better? What's next for the Lakers?
Well, I think they might be able to win a game, but at this point, I think the simple truth of the matter is Oklahoma City's a better team. I really believe that. And they're also probably an angry team because the Ron Artest thing with James Harden that happened near the end of the regular season. I think Oklahoma City's gotten a lot tougher over the last couple of years. I mean, Westbrook brings a lot of nasty on the court with him. Durant has gotten tougher and obviously is one of the gifted players in the game. Serge Ibaka has gotten tougher. James Harden is tough. They're not just skilled; they're tough too. I just think they're too good for the Lakers. Maybe the Lakers get one, but I think Oklahoma City is going to win this series pretty easily. And I would imagine Oklahoma City will play San Antonio in the West Finals, and I think that'll be an unbelievable series.
Right. So I guess so you think that the Spurs will have no problem with the Clippers in the other side?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm such a fan of the way San Antonio plays, assuming their key guys play healthy. I mean, they're also so deep. Everybody talks about how old the 3 guys are. Only 2 of them are old.
Right.
Parker's 29 years old.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Parker's 4 years younger than Kobe. And Tony Parker had his best season this year. Duncan is much better and healthier this year than he was last year. Ginobili is probably not the player he used to be, but he's obviously still a very good player. And then they've got all these young guys like Gary Neal and Tiago Splitter and DeJuan Blair, who coming off the bench, and Danny Green. All the really good players. They're one of the deepest teams in the NBA. They've got as good a coach as there is in all of professional sports, and the Clippers are exciting and they're good and they've had a very nice season, but I'm not sure they can do much damage against the Spurs.
Right, great point. Popovich sometimes plays 12 from that team. Patty Mills, who went to St. Mary's. I mean, they have a great bench, and yeah, you mentioned Danny Green. He struggled his first 2 years, but he's really had a breakout year. Okay, moving on now to the East. I think we won't even talk about the Celtics 76ers. I really want to hear your thoughts. We'll end with this, Dan. The Heat Pacers, a very interesting series in my opinion. I actually picked the Pacers on our network to win. I really like their team. And last game 1, they lost by 9 in Miami. Danny Granger shot 1 for 10. The team really didn't show up, and they still only lost by 9. Chris Bosh is out for the series, it appears. Do you think the Pacers can at least make it interesting? I won't put you on the spot and say win, but can the Pacers take this to a Game 6 or a Game 7? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they can. I mean, I think they're as underrated a team as there's been in the NBA in a long time. They got no attention all season, finished third in the East, had a great winning percentage. The thing that's lacking in Indiana, they don't play in a big market, so they don't get a lot of attention, and they don't have that guy. They don't have the Kobe, the LeBron, the Wade, that superstar. But they've got 8 or 9 really good, hungry players. And whether it's Granger, whether it's George, whether it's Hill, Tyler Hansbrough, David West, the Barbosa, they got a lot of pieces. And I think Frank Vogel, who's definitely not a household name, is a terrific coach. I've only done 2 of their games in the last 2 years.
Wow.
But I've been so impressed with the way that they play, how hard they play, and how together they play. They're really, really good. And Miami better not take them lightly because Indiana's hungry. I'm not sure they can win it, but I think they can really put a scare into the Heat in this series.
And it's going to be a great series, I think, either way. I think it'll be very entertaining. And, of course, winner goes on to the Eastern Conference Finals. Dan, we certainly appreciate your time here on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio. And we'll let you get going. And we look forward to the next time. Dan, thank you so much.
All right, guys. Have a good day.
You too, Dan. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, that was ESPN's Dan Schulman here on Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with more Louis Live here on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Feel good every time you make a purchase. When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed Frequent Flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Shutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Harry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.IsraelGym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com. Back here on Louis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com. So, Raphael, the Pacers, why do you have them beating the Heat?
That's a wonderful question, Ari, and I'm so glad you're giving me the opportunity to tell our listeners. The Pacers will beat the Heat, not why I think they will. They will beat the Heat because now Chris Bosh is out. That hurts them in so many ways. Nobody knows about my man, Roy Hibbert, 2012 All-Star, fourth-year player out of Georgetown, coached by the great Thompson son, I guess not the original, but this guy is a legit man. He's 7'3". If you name me in 2 seconds, sorry, how many other 7'3" guys there are in the NBA? One?
Yeah,
two.
I don't think I have
exactly. He's a stud. No one can guard him. They have a guy named Joel Anthony who's Canadian, so I know about him. That is the Heat. He is a bench player at best. No, not being disrespectful to him, but he's not a very good player. Then they have no one who can guard him. If he can dominate in the post, Tyler Hansbrough can dominate in the post, this series could be over. I mean, as I mentioned with Dan, Danny Granger, who's their star, shot 1 for 10, and they only lost by 8 points or 9 points in Miami. This team is going to win both games at home. I really believe that. And if they can steal one tonight, or I believe tonight or tomorrow night, this team is loaded with talent. This Darren Collison, Paul George, David West, this Leander Barbosa, your boy, Ari, from the Suns.
The Heat are also loaded with talent. There's
They're not,
LeBron
though.
James.
They have LeBron and Dwayne. Then what? Who do they have after that? Nobody.
They don't have Bosch, right?
They have nobody. They have guys like Chalmers.
Shane Battier.
Oh, come on. Shane Battier is past his prime. He shoots. That's all he's going to do for you. He's going to make some three-pointers, but he's not going to drive. Mike Miller is the same thing. Mike Miller's been injured for the last 20 years, it seems like. This team...
Rookie of the year, by the way, in 2000.
2000.
Long time ago.
2000. Bosch out indefinitely. We're just looking at that right now. He's not coming back this series. I don't know. I mean, I really have... Is the game tonight?
Miami won 9 points, by 9 points.
Not at home, and Danny Granger shot 1 for 10. I mean, that's if Danny Granger shoots 4 for 10, they win the game. That's 8 points, and then you'd think he'd have more assists. I mean, I don't know. Chris Bosh really hurts his team. No, Hibbert, 7'3". Who is going to guard Hibbert on the Heat? Nobody. Joel Anthony cannot guard him. No way. The guard play, they don't really have a guard. The Heat, they have Chalmers and Cole, but those guys aren't legit guys. I take Collison over them and Paul George. This team is young. This team wants to win. They're tired of waiting. This is Indiana basketball. I live there. It's not next year. They want to win now. They had 5 years where they were horrible. Ron Artest ruined that franchise. I'm going to say it. Ruined that franchise. He's an idiot. He destroyed the town of Indianapolis, or the city of Indianapolis. The Pacers are back. They're a number 3 seed. This wouldn't be an upset, guys. This is a 3 seed against a 2 seed. I mean, it's not like we're talking 1 seed, 8 seed, 2 seed, 10. I mean, 3 seed against 2 seed. I could be wrong, but you know what? I'll tell you this. If they don't win, it's going to be a great series. There's a game tonight. I'll be watching it, of course. Then, of course, there'll be a great game 4 on Sunday. If the Pacers can win the game tonight, Ari Louis, I don't know. Be very careful, because they can win these 2 games at home. It's very possible. Crazy, crazy fan base for the Pacers, just like Indiana Hoosiers basketball. Indiana loves its basketball. If they win tonight, which I think they could, they're up 1-1. They go back. That's 3-1. If they win the 2 at home, then they have 3 games to win 1 game. So, those are my thoughts. I could be wrong. But I think it's time for the Pacers to go back to glory, back to the Reggie Miller days.
Yeah. Here are my thoughts. Miami in 6.
Okay.
All right, we'll take a break.
Right. So that's what I think.
Kyle Draper on the other side. It's Louis Live in Israel, sportsradio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Body and Soul Gym in the heart of Talpiot. Great machines, excellent staff, and wonderful classes such as Pilates, yoga, and kickboxing. Give them a call at 02-678-8861. Once again, that's 02-678-8861. www.body-soul.co.il. Once again, that's www.body-soul.co.il. That's Body and Soul in the heart of Talpiot, which is great for your body and your soul.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed frequent flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Shutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Terry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.israelgym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Louis Live, our thanks to ESPN's Dan Schulman for taking time out of his busy schedule to talk to us. Great insights about Albert Pujols' slump. I agree with him. Out of the comfort zone was an excellent theory, and I do concur.
Hi, Kyle. Are you there?
Hello, Kyle?
Yeah, hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, what's going on? This is, of course, Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio. It's a pleasure to bring back Kyle Draper. We had so much fun and good vibes from Kyle the last time he was on. Decided to bring him back. And Raphael wants us to start with some Celtics talk.
All right, Kyle, it's great to have you back on. We got to talk Celtics. Big game last night. I guess not a great game for your Celtics. Try to make that fourth quarter rally as you guys did in game one, but too much, I guess, Evan Turner, which is a weird thing to say. But what were your thoughts on last night's game?
Well, the Celtics, obviously they're not 100% healthy. Paul Pierce, is really banged up right now, and it's showing in this series. He was 2 of 9, 7 points last night. That's not going to get it done. But you got to give the Sixers a lot of credit, guys. They made some big shots in a hostile environment, whether it was LaVoy Allen or Evan Turner, Andre Iguodala. Those guys really stepped up and hit big shots, in one of the most hostile crowds in the league. And the Celtics, offensively, they just struggled pretty much throughout that game up until the fourth quarter, dug themselves too big of a hole and gave the Sixers too much confidence, and that's what happened.
Right, and I mean, it's really amazing what Doug Collins has been able to do. Of course, we're talking right now with Kyle Draper from Comcast Sportsnet New England, so we're not going to make him praise the 76ers too much. But, Doug Collins really took the squad. They really struggled towards the end of the year. There was a time, Kyle, when they were the 4th and 5th seed for a bit, and then they kind of went on a huge losing streak. This team, believe it or not, the guy who led the team in points was Lou Williams. So this team is a very interesting offensive team. Evan Turner is a great player, but he's not going to explode he's not going to do 30 points a game. That's not his game. He's going to score maybe 6 points in the last 5 minutes. And then you add a guy like Drew Holiday from UCLA, very explosive guard. And, of course, Andre's kind of been the face of this franchise for a while. And we've talked with some guys from different media outlets, and they've said that maybe he wasn't necessarily ready to be the face of the 76ers when they gave him that title. But now it seems like he's ready because he has all these young guys who really appreciate him, respect him. And things are good right now in Philadelphia. Obviously, I still think the Celtics are going to pull it off just because more talent, and I think it's going to be a great showdown either with the Heat or the Pacers. But what do you think the Celtics need to do so they don't get in that fourth quarter, panicking and trying to come back? How can they go into the fourth quarter in Game 3 winning?
Well, I think with the Celtics, it's really a rhythm thing. I mean, when things are clicking, when that chemistry is flowing, when that ball is moving, that's when they're at their best. Doc Rivers said it last night. We had too many guys trying to beat their defender one-on-one, or even when they were trapped 1-on-2, instead of making just the simple play out there. And like I said before, the Sixers defense, that's a top 3 defense in this league, scoring wise, throughout the regular season. So you got to give them a lot of credit. I think there will be some adjustments made. We saw from game 1 and 2, the Sixers make a defensive adjustment on Kevin Garnett, pushed him out of his spots a little bit, made things a little different. Now the onus is on Doc Rivers to counter, to give KG more touches. Think about it, guys. Garnett, I think, only had 2 field goals over the first 3 quarters. And this is after torching him in game 1 for 29 points. And so he needs to be more involved. I think Rondo also has to do a better job of getting his teammates involved. He's at his best when he's driving the ball and then kicking it out to the shooters. They need to get back to that. They didn't do much of that in the first 3 quarters. And so I'm still with you. I still got the Celtics winning this series, probably in 6. But, Philly, that was a big win for not only that team, but just the franchise in general. 30 years without winning on the road in Boston in the playoff game. And so that was a huge win for them last night.
Kyle, can you hear us, Kyle?
Yeah,
okay.
I can hear you guys now.
Okay, sorry about that. I think we lost you there for a couple of minutes. But we're back with you.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, what I was saying, this team Doug Collins is known for being a great defensive coach. The 76ers, it's very impressive what they're doing, at such a young age to be able to do this and have a guy like Andre Iguodala as their leader. So I agree with you. Probably it'll go 6, maybe 7, who knows. Of course, the 76ers now have the advantage. But last thing before we move on we want to talk some Pats with you, even though it's the offseason. Rondo has kind of struggled shooting the ball this series. He's shooting, I believe, 30%, something like that. He only scored 8 points in the last game. What's going on with that? He's not necessarily a great shooter in general, but you expect more than 8 points from him. So how is he going to improve that in the next couple games?
Well, I think the Sixers are doing a good job also defensively on him. And the thing about Rondo that I'm noticing, he's passing up open layups to get guys the ball. He needs to take those shots, make those layups, But especially in game 1, we saw him several times get to the rack, get to the hoop, and then dish it off to KG. And KG knocked down those shots and made those shots. But I think Rondo has to put more pressure on the Sixers defense as well and not become a scorer, going for 20 points or anything like that, but keep them honest, too. There were times in last night's game where the Sixers helped off of Rondo or helped off of Avery Bradley or Ryan Hollins, guys they really didn't consider threats, and double-team KG. And I think that slowed the offense down for the Sixers. He needs to be aggressive, going to the basket, and finishing those layups when they're there, but also kicking it out as well. But I'm not going to put too much pressure on them to, average 15, 16, 17. But I say when the shots are there, he needs to take them.
Right, and, he's capable. We've seen him make some big shots. In that Hawks series, we just had the play-by-play guy from the Hawks about an hour ago, and he was telling us Rondo really killed them in that series. He always came up with really big shots, especially in that last game. He was really rolling. So we talked about the Celtics. We both agree, Kyle, 6 or 7 games, Celtics are moving on, right?
Yeah, I definitely got the Celtics still moving on, but the Sixers will make each and every game difficult on them.
Okay, great. Now let's move on to the Patriots. Some kind of big news. Wes Welker goes on local radio there. I'm sure you guys cover this a lot on Comcast, and says he has 9.5 million reasons to play. What are your thoughts on that quote or that comment that he made to the radio or the media?
Well, Welker knows this is all a negotiating tactic. He wants that long-term deal. He wants to get paid, but eventually he will report to camp. Like you said, $9.5 million, the franchise tag. It's still a lot of money for a wide receiver, and I think he's just, his agent is telling him, you know what, let's hold out as long as we can. Let's see what we can get. If we don't come to agreement on a long-term deal, that's okay. We'll play this 1 year out and see what happens. See what happens after that. So I honestly think when it's mandatory for him to be there, he'll be there. So, and the Patriots, a guy that covers the Patriots, I'm not too worried about it. It's not like Welker has a history of being difficult or, holding out. He doesn't come across as one of those guys. I think this is just all part of the process right now.
Right, and you know what? Before we move on to baseball, What you're saying, yeah, he probably will report to camp. He made that comment, which kind of makes it obvious that he will. Yeah, he does want the long-term deal. We'll see what happens there. But the Patriots' offense, if it's possible, is going to be even more explosive this year. They added some key guys like Brandon Lloyd, Joseph Adai from the Colts. I have a lot of friends in Indianapolis, and he is now being called the traitor in Indianapolis for leaving the Colts and signing with the Patriots. I don't really understand why he's a traitor. I don't think the Colts wanted him anyway, so I don't really know why they're calling him a traitor. But that's what Indianapolis fans do. I guess the same thing happened with Vinatieri, left for the Colts. A lot of Patriots fans were kind of bitter about that, so maybe it's flip-flop. But there's great stuff here, great addition to this offense, and, of course, new offensive coordinator. I'm blanking on the name. Josh McDaniels, that is. He's going to be the new offensive coordinator. Yeah. There's a lot of great names. There's more guys I just can't think, but those are just two key guys that I thought of. Brandon Lloyd's a key guy. In 2010, he had over 1,000 yards, I think 8 touchdowns. So this guy has great capabilities. So real quick, we have about 5 minutes, and we just want to hear your thoughts on the Patriots kind of upgrading that offense. What are your thoughts?
Well, I definitely like those moves they made, whether it's a Brandon Lloyd or let's not forget Jabbar Gaffney. Also is back in the fold with New England. So I definitely like the moves they made at the wide receiving core. I don't think either one of those guys will go out there and get you 80, receptions and 12 touchdowns, but, it gives them depth, something they didn't have last year. Chad Ochocinco was a big disappointment. Now, I'd be surprised if he's on the team, next season when the season begins. I think, when you have Wes Welker, on to Brandon Lloyd, those two guys are definitely going to be there. I think Jabbar Gaffney will be there. And maybe a Deion Branch also. Bill Belichick likes him. He's a veteran. And outside of the playoffs, Deion had a pretty good year. And so I think Ocho Cinco may be one of the odd guys left out of this, out of the rotation once the season rolls around. And then you mentioned a guy like Joseph Adai. I wonder how much he has left in the tank, guys. I mean, over his last 2 years, he didn't crack 500 yards rushing in either of his last 2 years. And so I don't know if he's going to stick. He's a veteran. Maybe he can help out. But obviously, Indianapolis said his best days were done. But I still like the moves and the veterans that they brought in. This is a team, that prides itself on having those kind of veterans. We've seen it in the past with Corey Dillon brought in, guys like that. And so, honestly, I would like for them to have gone out and get a stud wide receiver in the draft, but that's not their philosophy, so we'll have to see how it pans out. But I do like Brandon Lloyd and Jabbar Gaffney for them.
All right, a few minutes left here with Kyle Draper. Let's go to the Red Sox. They're in last place, but really devastated by injuries, I think is the main situation. Jacoby Ellsbury, who was second in MVP last season, he's out for 60 days. You have Carl Crawford out. You have Kevin Youkilis out. So could that potentially save Bobby Valentine his job, that this is not maybe his fault, it's just an issue of injuries?
Maybe, but, the thing is, I don't think a lot of people think their issue is when it comes to offense. It's really the pitching staff, mostly the starters now, because the bullpen has actually been playing better lately. It's the starters that have been wildly inconsistent. They finally seem to be coming around. We'll have to see tonight. Josh Beckett is on the mound tonight. He got shelled last week in his last outing. But it's the starting pitching that's really let him down. Guys averaging, above 5 in ERA. And so they need Buchholz. They need Lester. They need Beckett to be dominant like they were a few years ago. And then I think that's the biggest problem. And you're right. It can't hurt getting a guy like Youkilis back, or Ellsbury back, or Crawford back in the lineup. But make no mistake about it, injuries have played a part. And it seems like a lot of people don't want to talk about the Red Sox injuries, believe it or not. They go into the season with their closer, supposed closer, Andrew Bailey, being out for 3 months, maybe 4 months. And that was a huge loss, because that shuffled up the starting rotation as well. And so they seem to be turning the corner now, guys, 5 straight wins. And so we'll see how it plays out. But injuries are part of it, but I think the pitching staff needs to be better also.
All right, and last question before we let you go. David Ortiz is having a really solid year, leads the Red Sox in most offensive categories. the interesting thing about him, I believe he's going to be 37 at the end of the year. How much more does he have in the tank for Big Papi?
I don't know, because we had the same conversation, 2 years ago,
right.
Last year. How much more, He's old. He can't hit lefties, And so, but he's obviously proven us wrong, and you have to wonder how much of this has to do with him being in a contract year once again, him wanting to get, a 2-year deal from somebody else, after this season. And so you can't argue with what the guy has done on the field. I mean, if I'm a team looking at what he's done, 2 years is the most I'd go for him, maybe 1 and a team option, because eventually those numbers are going to go down. I mean, it's just Mother Nature always wins, He's undefeated. And so he can't keep this up, next year, 2 years down the line. But you got to tip your hat to him, because 2 years ago when people wrote him off, and now you see him today, he's getting the last laugh.
Yeah, that's for sure. And playing great, even at the age of 36. We'll see how much more he has to go. Generally known as a popular guy and a nice guy, so hope Big Papi can continue the success. Kyle, we certainly appreciate your time here on Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com, and we look forward to doing it again soon.
All right, fellas. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Kyle. Be well. All right, that was Kyle Draper of Comcast New England, and that was a lot of fun. We're going to not take a commercial here and dial up our next guest, and while we do that, just give some thoughts on what Kyle touched upon, that he thinks the issue more is with the pitching. Josh Beck can go in tonight for the Red Sox, so we'll see if at the end of the day the Red Sox can turn it around and get things done. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Raphael.
No, I was just going to introduce our next guest is Jay Ingber. He works for the radio station in Lawrence, Kansas. So we're going to talk some college basketball with him for about 15 minutes.
Okay, so we look forward to that. And then our thanks again to Kyle Draper from Comcast New England. I don't think Bobby Valentine's making the end of the year. I'll tell you.
Hi, am I speaking with Jay?
Yeah.
Hi, Jay. You're on Louis Live and Israel Sports Radio on TuneIn. How are you doing out there?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always great to have people on from all over the country. We'll be honest with you, I don't think we've ever had anyone on from Kansas, so this will be exciting for us. We have about 15 minutes, so let's get right to it. Kansas had a great year this year, a year that a lot of people did not expect, especially after the Twins going in the NBA draft, going 10 and 11 respectively. No one really knew what to expect of Thomas Robinson. He was a reserve the year before. Tyshawn Taylor had a lot of talent, but no one really knew. And really, in my opinion, I want to get your opinion because you cover this team and you're there every night. Jeff Withey was really, I think, the X factor of this team. Had some monster games, 22 points and 12 rebounds, stuff that no one was expecting. He's coming back. He's going to be a senior. So as a guy who got to do the play-by-play for the games, please give us some more insight on what happened with this team. Was this just an amazing job by Bill Self, or give us some more thoughts on your Jayhawks?
You bring up a great point talking about Jeff Withey, because Jeff Withey is a guy that in the beginning of the season, I was the first person to criticize him. I was the first person to say on our radio shows, this kid's got a lot of work to do if he wants to be something special for this Jayhawks team. And guys, it wasn't too long into the season. I want to say maybe in November or even early December, Withey started to show signs of playing more aggressive. He started to show signs of having a little more intensity in games. And really, that's the one thing he's always lacked, is that intensity. And when he started to show that early on in the season, that continued to pick up. So I agree. Jeff Withey was a key player for this team. Was he the MVP? No. You got guys like Thomas Robinson, like you said, Tyshawn Taylor. Those are the kinds of guys that keep these teams together and give them a chance to make it to the NCAA tournament and the national championship. But Jeff Withey was a key player to this team. You saw him leading the team in blocks. He led the Big 12, and he's a Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, this kid was a key player for Kansas, and to say that we have him again next year is pretty special, because he's going to be something special in his career once he leaves KU.
Right, and the Big 12 was, I don't want to say it was better than it usually is, but last year was pretty special with the addition of Missouri. Not the addition of Missouri to the conference, but just finally having Missouri play the way that a lot of people have expected them to play the last 5-10 years. Having a great season. Of course, they lost in the first round of Norfolk State, but we won't talk about that. A lot of people are saying...
We can talk about that if you want. Over here in Lawrence, Kansas, we're very proud about that loss.
Exactly, I'm sure you guys. But, hey, you guys lost to Bucknell a couple of years ago, so I won't be talking.
Okay, all right. Now, that's fair.
But Missouri, a lot of people are saying, okay, a lot of these guys are gone, graduated. But you know what? I'm going to say no. I like this team next year. I think they're going to be very talented next year. They have about 4 transfers who will be playing immediately. They got Oriaki from UConn, who was on that 2010 national championship team. They have Lawrence Bowers, who had that torn ACL, who was really supposed to maybe be the best player on that team last year, but of course tore his ACL. And then they have Presley as well, one of the Presley brothers. So this team could be dangerous next year as well. Then in Baylor, they're going to have a great recruiting class. They'll have Brady Heslop, the Canadian. I got to give him a shout out because I'm Canadian. And Texas is going to be great. Mike Kabongo's coming back, the Canadian as well. So are Kansas fans pretty nervous about next year? It's supposed to be a pretty strong Big 12 next year.
The Big 12 has always been historically a strong conference, and every year, people always say, "Oh, the Big 12 title goes through Lawrence," and somehow, some way, this team has found a way to really make that the case. And you got to give credit to a guy like Bill Self, but without question, the Big 12 is a phenomenal conference, very talented. And I remember this year, at the beginning of the season, I was talking to Coach Self before the season even started, and I asked him what kind of a record he thought was going to win the conference. And he said that he felt that the winner of the Big 12 conference this past season, would have 3 or 4 conference losses. Well, KU won the conference with 2 losses, coming to Iowa State and Missouri, both on the road. And it goes to show that if Bill Self, the head coach of Kansas, believed that 4 losses was going to get, was going to be the number for the winner of the Big 12 title this year, to me that says that this is a very competitive, very diverse conference of players. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, Missouri's not going to be there for us next year. They're onto the SEC.
Oh, right.
What they think bigger and better things. So we don't have to worry about Missouri. But like you said, Texas, obviously Baylor. Look, there's a lot of talented teams. We're going to be getting BYU and West Virginia. So those 2 teams are going to be added into the mix, and that will be really interesting to see whether or not they can kind of make a big splash in their first year of the Big 12.
Right, and I remember watching that last Kansas-Missouri game. I don't know why I made that mistake. My apologies. Of course, they will be moving. But yeah, West Virginia, a team that really, I wouldn't say struggled last year, but they're about 500. They were average, and they had a guy like Kevin Jones, who was a monster, 22 and 10, I believe, were his averages. But Huggins wants to win, and last year was a down year. They still made the tournament, but it wasn't a good year for them. This year, coming in to the Big 12, they have a chance to make a splash, as you mentioned, so we'll be on the lookout for them. And also BYU, they don't have Jimmer anymore. That's in the past, but they're competitive. They have a good recruiting class always. They always get the top Mormons in the world, not even the country, but in the world, to come play for them. And let's give an extra special shout out to Iowa State, a team who we really talked a lot about on the program this season. A guy, Fred Hoiberg.
They're a great team.
Great team. Interesting thing that he did, a lot of controversy, take on those guys who were suspended from other teams, like Chris Allen from Michigan State, and of course Royce White from Minnesota. I'm a Big Ten guy. I lived in Bloomington, Indiana, so we all know about Royce White and how he had the problems with the laptop. And those guys just played really well. They played really well against Kentucky in the NCAA tournament the first half. They kind of fell apart the second half. Royce White left. I'm not really sure if he should have done that. I think if he stayed, he might have been able to be a lottery pick. Now he's probably going to be a mid-first-round pick, but we'll see. But still, Fred Hoiberg, that is, deserves a lot of credit. And it'll be very interesting to watch your Big 12 next year. I wanted to talk to you about guys leaving for the draft early. You've had a couple of those guys, and I just wrote an article about that a couple of days ago on Beyond You Sports. And one of the guys I use as an example, Jay, was Xavier Henry or Xavier Henry, or how do you pronounce?
Xavier Henry. It only took me about 6 games to figure that one out.
Right, and this guy, I don't really know what to say. He struggled in his freshman year. He decided that it was the time to leave, and I don't even know where he's. I think he's on the Grizzlies now. I'm not even sure where he's playing, but he's not really playing.
He's in Memphis.
Right.
He's in Memphis right now with also last year guard Josh Selby. And,
right.
I mean, here's what I'll say about guys leaving for the NBA draft. If I was put in a position where someone sat me down and said, you can make $1 or even $2 million just by leaving a university, I can't promise anybody that I'd say no. And I'm sure you'd probably say the same thing.
Right, of course.
But the fact of the matter is that these guys are too, when they're being presented with those options in their life, in their life, we're talking about people who 2 weeks before that, the whole world is calling them quote unquote student athletes. Well, they're student athletes for a reason because they're a little bit immature. And so here's my whole thing on leaving early for the NBA draft, and that is that if you want to develop a college basketball team, if you want to develop a program and really educate and teach these kids, and you want to really have them be student athletes, as what they're calling them, then make them stay for at the minimum 3 years, which is what they did in college football.
Right.
But if you want to let these kids go out into the real world and make the big dollars that they're making in the NBA, then don't call them student athletes and give them some sort of a stipend in college and make it a little bit more consistent. Because right now, when you let somebody play in college for 1 year and really, as you saw last year with Josh Selby, the year before that with Xavier Henry here at Kansas, they didn't really do a whole lot to help develop the Kansas team. I mean, we were okay, but we didn't go anywhere in the tournament. We got beaten the first and second round. And so that's my thing, is that if you want to call these players student athletes, then make them student athletes and force them to be in college for up to 3 years at least. But if you don't do that, then you got to create some sort of a stipend or some sort of a form of reimbursement or payment, because these kids are bringing in some big bucks for these universities when it comes to their athletics department. So it's a really messed up system, to say the least, right now.
Right.
But
yeah.
I do have faith that in the near future, the NCAA will figure out what's right, and I think that'll be what's best for college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. The article I was just telling you, that was my last paragraph. I think at least 2 to 3 years is necessary. A lot of people have been saying stuff like, oh, why are the mid-majors, why are they getting better? And I think the answer is because those guys are 4-year starters. And if you look at
you hit it right on the head.
Yeah, I
mean,
we had the pleasure of interviewing Coach Stevens from Butler, and I asked him about that, and he said, that's really the key, is that guys like Shelvin Mack, who he left after his junior year, but he was there 3 years, and he probably could have left after his sophomore year. And a guy like Matt Howard, who was there four-time, or I think 2-time Horizon Player of the Year, was really a big man. He was their main big man on those Final Four teams. He also could have left, or I don't know if he could have left, but he stayed. He stayed for 3 years. And you just look at the George Mason team and the VCU team; those were teams with older guys. And when guys leave every year, the thing that's starting to get scary, Jay, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, and then we're going to have to wrap it up, is there's guys, it used to be that, fine, the best guys would go. The guys that for sure should be first-round picks would go. But in the last 5 years, it's really been like anyone's going now. I mean, you look at a guy, Jerome Richmond at Illinois, he averaged 7 points a game for Illinois, and he left. There's so many names like I said, I just wrote a long article about this, but it's just crazy to see guys that know that they're going to be second-round picks, and hey, second round is not $1 million or $2 million. That's getting cut.
Yeah. Josh Selby is exactly what you're talking about.
Right. You can get cut in training camp and then end up playing here in Israel. We have one of the top European leagues, but why come play in Israel when you could play another year or 2 years in college? Look at Andre Drummond. I know he's the number 2 pick in the draft, probably, or will be, or top 5. But the guy could definitely have used another year. I mean, also Hasheem Thabit, same kind of story, same kind of talent. Guys with a lot of raw talent, but do they really need to come out now?
Well, that's what I'm saying is that you look at these. You're talking about guys who are young kids. They're younger than me. I mean, I'm 22 years old, and these kids are Thomas Robinson. He's 21. You know, Josh Shelby was 19. I mean, these kids are students. They're immature, and when you get $1-2 million, even under that, even $750,000. I mean, can you believe? What would I do with $750,000 1 year removed from college? I have a long list of things I would do with that amount of money. You guys, these people are being presented with opportunities and options that are unlike anything they've ever heard.
Right.
And when you get guys like Josh Shelby, for example, grows up on the East Coast in Baltimore, probably I know he's in a tough financial state with his family for a period of time. When he's presented with that type of option in his life to make up to $1 million, and you guys, $1 million is a lot of money, even though that you got guys like Alex Rodriguez in Major League Baseball making $25 million a year. For a 19-year-old, $1 million check to sign your John Hancock at the dotted line, that's a big deal.
No, so it's I completely agree.
The major problem here is you got kids who are being kids, and $750,000 or $1 million or $2 or $3 million, whatever it is, that's a lot of money, and they got a lot of ways they could put their families and their people around them in financially good positions, stabilize their financial situation, and to me, that's the biggest problem. You're throwing big money at these people at a very young age, which we're just calling them student athletes now. They're student athletes. Well, if they were student athletes, they'd be taught a little bit more in school how to handle these situations, and they're not. Because right now, they're not student athletes. They're athletes, and they're making way too much money for these universities to even be considered a student athlete, in my opinion.
Jay, we've really had a great time. We're sorry we only had a 15-minute segment available today, but we'd love to have you on.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
We'd love to have you on in the future if you're interested. Just we'll talk to you through email or whatever is best for you. And have a great day out there in Lawrence.
All right, thanks so much, guys. Have a good day.
Thanks, Jay.
All right, that was Jay Inberg, who is the voice of the Kansas Jayhawks.
How about how does this sound? All right, we call Maya on now, and then we go to commercial after that.
Yes, let's do that. So we're going to stay here and take a break.
Is an Israeli journalist, which is awesome. We don't get to have Israeli journalists on. Ari's going to start off by talking to her about the NBA playoffs. She's a big NBA fan. And then I'm going to finish about the last 5 minutes of the segment speaking with her about Israeli playoffs, which have been amazing. So we're going to have probably about 7 minutes of NBA and about 5 minutes of Israeli basketball. So Maayan Efrat will be joining us. She's from Ynet, I believe. Ynet or Haaretz. We'll find out. We'll ask her. I'm pretty sure maybe
from
even
Haaretz.
Both. Yeah, it says Ynet on her Twitter. We'll find out. Let's ask.
Okay.
Maybe both? We'll see.
It could be both.
Could be both.
So tied up Maayan as we speak, and we'll talk to her in a few moments here on Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Hello.
Hi, Maayan. This is Ari Louis. You're live on Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com. How you doing out there?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Quick question before we begin. Are you with both Ynet and Haaretz?
No, I'm with Maariv right now. I switched not long ago, so I'm with Maariv newspaper these days.
Okay, fair enough. So make sure that we have that correctly. Before we get to Israeli basketball, I want to talk about the NBA playoffs. We know you're a big fan. Raphael has told me that he's caught you staying up late. He's tweeted with you late into the evening watching these games. So it's good stuff. Let's go to the Lakers Thunder. The Thunder blew out the Lakers in Game 1. Not a close game. A lot of anxiety around James Harden and Ron Artest as Ron Artest elbowed him and knocked Harden out to the ground. What are your thoughts about this series? I think I have the Thunder going to the finals from the beginning of the year. I don't think the Lakers are going to win this series. What are your thoughts?
I had the Thunders going to the final series as well, and we saw why. I think last night, Lakers' offense was very, very bad. Not how it will be continuing on, but it's kind of, I think, set the things in motion. And Ron Artest, as you said, Ron Artest, the not Meta World Peace. Most of the season we called him Meta World Peace. he was more in peace with himself, and now we see Ron Artest back in the finals. Something happened there.
Yeah, he's that Meta World Peace thing is cute. It looked like he got his mind together with the shrink and then lost it there and got suspended. And was lucky, actually, that the Lakers went so long in the first round so they could use up his suspension games in that series against the Nuggets and not here against the Thunder. But I think Kevin Durant and Westbrook are going to be a little too much. And I think they're really pumped up about what happened with James Harden. Let's stay in the Western Conference. Spurs versus the Clippers. Tip-off for Game 1 is tonight. I guess you'll be up watching it because it'll be 4:30 in the morning, I think. So I guess.
Yeah, really that. Most of the Western Conference are about 4:30, yeah.
So Spurs Clippers, I don't think this is going to be really a problem for the Spurs. I know people say they're an older team, but Tony Parker, as we talked about with the previous guest, is only 29, I believe. So I don't think they're as old as everyone imagines. What do you see between the Spurs and the Clippers?
I agree with you. I think they played the season right. The Spurs, Popovich divided the minutes, make sure no one gets too injured. They have a good backup. And experience, just a lot of experience. Clippers, we know, were a losing franchise for a long time. They brought good players in, but they still, all of them as a franchise, need some experience, and that's something the Spurs have plenty.
Yeah, absolutely. And, since 1999, outside of the Mavericks last season in 2006, has either been the Lakers or the Spurs come out of the West. I think it'll change this year with OKC, but the Spurs have certainly been there, done that, have managed Ginobili. Tony Parker's had the best season of his career this season, and Tim Duncan is still very effective, even though he's at the latter stages of his career. And moving over to the Eastern Conference, Celtics versus the 76ers. People talk about how old the Celtics are, but a basket here or there, and they would be up 2-0 in the series. They're the 4 seed going against the 8 with the 76ers. We go back to Philadelphia for Game 3 for tomorrow. What is your thoughts on the series between the C's and the 76ers?
Philadelphia really surprised everybody with the injuries that Chicago suffered from, and they moved up. But as we know, again, experience is on the Boston side, and the youth is on Rondo and Ivory Bradley, who played a short time here in Israel. So they really have, again, everything. The combination between young, explosive players that come into their own, and the experience, and Kevin Garnett is doing great since mid-season. He got some rest, came back. Since then, he's giving all-time high numbers, so that's something that I think the Celtics will have, and it's nice work by Philly first round using the injuries to qualify, but I don't think they'd be a big problem at the next step.
All right, and last series here in the NBA to talk about the 2-seeded Miami Heat take on the Pacers. The 3-seed Raphael thinks the Pacers are going to win this series. I think he's crazy. The Heat win the first game by 9 points. Now Bosch is out for this series. It looks like pretty serious injury there. I think the Heat still are going to have enough to win in 6. What are your thoughts between the Heat and the Pacers?
I agree. That was my bet as well. Hit in 6 games. Maybe the tiredness will take them down in 2 games, but I see them not only in the Eastern Finals, but the overall Finals. I think that's their year, at least to go all the way to the Finals. After that, it's LeBron in crunch time. We'll see what he can do. But Miami, I think, is everybody's Eastern seed in the Finals, in the overall Finals. They can do it. I don't think Bosch's injury is going to stop them. He might come back even before, so you can't really know what's going to be over there.
Right, and Mayan, this is Raphael. I can't say I agree with you because I love this Pacers team, and I really think Danny Granger shoots 1 for 10. They only lose by 9 in Miami. I think they're going to win the 2 games at home. I think they might get a W tonight. We'll see. I think it's definitely going to go 6 or 7, and I'd like to see my Pacers win, but we'll see what happens. Let's move it now into the Israeli basketball playoffs, which have been amazing. Sunday was an amazing day in sports with the EuroLeague finals were amazing. The Manchester City game was amazing. Of course, we had some good stuff in our own domestic league here. So let's start off with talking about some Maccabi Habika. That wasn't really a series, right? I mean, it was pretty, yeah.
Yeah, everybody knew that's what's going to happen. I think the Bika knew it as well. They wanted to come show off what they can do, but they didn't really expect to steal a game or something. And they lost their top player, Paul Delaney, just before the series. He had a problem with his hand.
Right.
He thought about maybe staying here and playing, but they told him, we're going to lose it anyway, here, with you or without you. You shouldn't injure yourself too severely just for a series we'll probably lose. So they sent him home to get treated, and that pretty much made sure that even the difference between the two teams would be even greater. Just playing with 3 foreigners against Maccabi Tel Aviv is too much for a small team like Habika.
Right, and Habika, of course, came up last year from the second league, and they had an impressive year. If you look at it, they were able to make the playoffs, which is a difficult thing to do. And
Cup Final 4, yeah, they had a great first year, like a lot of teams here do, but the problem is they might not make it to their second year, money issues and all sorts of that stuff. Here in this league, it's always a problem.
Right. Let's move on now to Hapoel. A lot of problems there. They just got eliminated by Cholon. Yuval Naimi, a lot of rumors he might be leaving. I don't know if that's true. He's a loyal guy. He's been there, I think, since his youth. He's a great player, but you never know what's going to happen. A lot of issues with the Americans as well. Brian Randall, Ramel Bradley, and Strawberry, who really struggled the last 3 games in the Cholon series. The great players, also Israeli players on that team. Kadir is a great guy, is on the national team. So a lot of interesting things. Sharon Duka did an interview with Sport 5 last night and said he really doesn't know what's next for this team. They have a lot of decisions to make. What do you think they need to do to get back to that second spot and be number 2 behind Maccabi, or maybe number 1 in front of Maccabi next year?
I don't really know. It seems like nothing there ever works out the way they want to. They had decent players this year. They had the best Israeli players outside of Maccabi.
Right.
They had the addition of Ramel Bradley to come in and give extra firepower next to DJ Strawberry. They could at least do more, not lose the game at home. But you see that the pressure there is always something that affects them in the end. You see guys like you said, Kadir and Guni Israeli, who are great Israeli players. Guni took 2 championships in the last few years, but they really couldn't make a difference in this team. You didn't see them make really the impact they did in their former teams over there. They'll have to find something that I think is beyond basketball to try and get back to the days Sharon Drucker as a coach took their European Cup. So something is going to have to maybe go back to these days, think what it worked back then, and maybe try and get back to stuff that are not purely basketball, because they had good players this year.
I mean, great point. They had really good players. They played Maccabi better than anyone. I mean, I guess Ashdod beat them, and they also beat them, but still, they played them very well. They played them well in Nokia. They played them well in Malcha. It was very sad to see them fall apart against a Cholon team, which I don't really think is necessarily that good of a basketball team. They may be very talented, but they're not really that great of a team, in my opinion. I want to talk to you about Ashdod, which I think is really the story maybe so far of the playoffs. The number 7 seed beating Galil Galil, I always mix it up. We've had Alex Tyus on the show. He's a fan favorite of the show. I got to interview him and I wrote an article about him. He's a great guy, an amazing story, and just playing amazing right now. And let's give credit also to Tapiero, the I think 37-year-old Israeli veteran who's done so much for the league. It's really great to see him in the Final Four. It means a lot to him. So just real quick, we have about 2 minutes left. I want to get your thoughts on Ashdod and what they've been able to accomplish this year. Of course, I mentioned they beat Tel Aviv and Nokia as well, which is a great feature as well.
And that win was just after they released Ramel Bradley, and everybody thought they're giving up on the season. It looked like really bad when a team from Israel cuts a player from a different team in Israel. And, after you see something like that, you think that that's it, they're giving up. But since he left, Meir Tapir, as you said, found more minutes and better minutes, and Zol Hajjaj really came back to himself. And the American guys, Tyus, Duncan, Carter, found just more balls coming into their hands around the basket or far away from the basket, but wherever it's comfortable for them to shoot. So it's like, I won't say he bothered the team. They really love him still. He's still a great friend to them, Ramel Bradley. But it looks like something clicked better after you took one person out of the equation, and everybody could have found their place more easily in the team and the game style.
Right, and there's no question that Ramel Bradley is talented.
He's a great player.
But he really struggled. He struggled in the Cholon series, and so did Strawberry. He made a lot of really dumb turnovers, and I always joke with my friends who are always visiting here from America on whatever trips they're on, Birthright, etc. I always say the reason why these guys are making these mistakes, those are the same reasons why these guys aren't in the NBA. Because Ramel Bradley's a guy that went to Kentucky. That's the biggest school in America for sports. And, if you're going to be a star at Kentucky and not make it in the NBA, there's probably a good reason for it. And he just made a lot of really dumb mistakes, dumb passes, taking dumb shots in that Cholon series. Same with Strawberry. He went to Maryland and was a very big star at Maryland, but just couldn't make an NBA roster. Last question, very, very big game. I'm not exactly sure when it is. I think it's probably Thursday. Rishon LeZion is trying to make that comeback from 3-1 against Ashkelon, who's really seems to be struggling right now. They got in that fight, Tony Skin, at the end of the game. First of all, when is that game? Is that Thursday night?
The game is tomorrow. No,
tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
Okay.
Thursday night is the big gala night for the league. All of the MVPs and all the awards are going to be handed out on Thursday. So this game is Wednesday, and one of those teams will show up to this night very happy, and one will be very sad on that night. The game is tomorrow in Rishon, so that's a good thing for Rishon to have their home court advantage. This team really did a lot of good work all year. People thought they would be struggling. A lot of young American players and a lot of young Israeli players. People thought they're going to have a lot of problem with youth or inexperience, but they overcame it through the season. Most of the time, were they really well, and in the series, it caught up with them. Everything that people said what might happen happened to them in the series, and Ashkelon took advantage of that really well. Tony Skin and Raviv Limonad, who were sent away from the court at the game number 4 game, will play.
Right.
They got fined, and they will play.
Right.
And it's a big thing for Ashkelon. If they had to make do without the two of them, it would probably be an easy Rishon game. But having those two guys will probably give us another great tight basketball game, a close basketball game.
Right, and at Israel Sports Radio, we will be rooting for Ashkelon because we've had Marco and Dwayne Mitchell. And Dwayne was really an amazing story, a very humble guy. And Marco was probably the funniest interview I think I've ever done in my life. So we will be rooting for them. And, of course, Rishon is out, does not have Crawford, another great player from Kentucky. So that's really going to hurt them. But it'll be an interesting series. They came back. They have a great coach. Rishon does, and we'll see what happens, and it's going to be very interesting to see who gets in the Final Four. I'm going to be honest, I think Maccabi's going to roll against Cholon, and I think it's going to be interesting to see who Maccabi plays in the championship.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just say if you're looking for funny interviews, you should try the Rishon guys as well before they leave, a really funny group of guys as well.
Okay. All
right, Mayad, thank you for your time. We appreciate you being on Louis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com, and we'll have to do it again.
Guys.
We'll do it again real soon.
Okay.
All right, be well, Mayad.
Bye-bye.
All right, that was Mayad Efrat breaking down both the NBA playoffs and the Israeli Super League playoffs.
Right,
really knows her stuff.
Yeah, very good reporter. Very, very good reporter.
Now with Ma'ariv. So
we made that mistake. But
now we know it's Ma'ariv.
Right. And it's a great newspaper for our listeners out there in Israel in America who only know about the Post on Haaretz. Ma'ariv is a Hebrew edition newspaper that's probably considered with Haaretz as the number 1 and number 2 newspaper in Israel that's only in Hebrew. So it's a great newspaper.
We actually were in Ma'ariv, I think, when the station first started.
Right,
so,
that's in our website, I believe. That's in our media section. So check that out if you'd like. We're going to be adding a lot of great things to the media section in the next couple of days or the next couple of weeks. We have a lot of stuff when we were on college basketball coaches put their stuff on their website. Kent State, Rice, the Boston Celtics, when we interviewed Richard Gotham. So we're going to be updating that for you guys. We're going to have a great new section there in the upcoming weeks coming soon. So you guys should check that out.
Also want to mention everyone listening out there, go to IsraelSportsRadio.com, click on the store tab. You can purchase some kippot of your favorite team. We sell hats, T-shirts, we sell food. We don't sell everything, but we sell close to everything, it seems like.
Right.
So check out the store. Really easy to make a purchase. It's done through PayPal, so you can actually click on your card. It goes directly to the PayPal account.
Right.
So it's very simple and convenient. You can we have a long variety of items that you can check out. Again, store tab on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Right, and everyone out there, we want to make an announcement, or let Ari make it. Ari's the CEO. He should make it about TuneIn. Ari, tell our listeners out there about what happened with us.
Actually, it's very possible you're listening to us on TuneIn as we speak, but you can go to TuneIn Radio. We're very proud that in the Israel section, we're the only sports station, and we're one of the only few Israeli stations, period, to tell you the truth. We're with Gagalatz, who's a big station here in Israel.
Tzahal as well, Army Radio.
And Army Radio. So we're there's only, I think, 5 total. We're one of the 5, maybe a few more.
8, something like that. But we're very
proud about that.
We could do that. It took us a little while to set it up.
But we finalized the deal last night. With the people from TuneIn, very nice people.
Very nice people. And we're hoping right now, for anyone who's listening who doesn't know our show, this is Louis Live, which was started by Ari Louis. I'm his new co-host. We have a great show for you guys. We like to have guests on from everywhere. We'll give you a great example. Today we had on a radio host from San Francisco. We had the voice of the Kansas City Jayhawks, and we had ESPN's Dan Schulman. We also had the voice of the Hawks. So Ari and I really, and then we had a local Israeli reporter. So, and then we're ending the show with, and then we had Kyle Draper from Boston. We're ending the show with someone from New York, WFAN. So our show focuses on getting guests from all over the world, mostly America, to just examine San Francisco sports, Boston sports. We love to focus specifically on sports, and we love to focus on soccer, on basketball.
Yeah, and football, baseball as well. We go through, our main coverage is American sports, but we do cover the sports here in Israel as well.
As we just did with Mayan, that was a great segment. We really broke down the playoffs. The Final Four will be coming up in 2 weeks. That's one of the biggest sporting events in Israel. Ari Louis and I are going to try and get there, I believe, if we can make it work, if we don't have something else in our schedule.
Yeah, we certainly like to go support the players. The players here have been very, very nice, come on the program.
A lot of players.
Had a great relationship with them from all of the teams, and we've been doing it for a while, so we certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, shout out to all the American players playing in Israel.
And, they like coming on here because we are the only sports station in English here in the Middle East.
That's important for our listeners who are just tuning in right now who don't know much about us. We're the only sports network in the Middle East. We're talking the Middle East, Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan. And we love it. We love what we do, and we hope that you guys stick with us.
We hope you love listening to the show as much as we love doing it. So that is on the itinerary right now. We will have some other announcements later on in the future this summer, or perhaps a little earlier. But for right now, we are on TuneIn Radio, and again, we certainly appreciate them putting us on the network.
Shout out to Scott.
Yeah, Scott from TuneIn. So enjoy. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Tell your enemies. Tell everybody. Yeah. Tell everyone we're on TuneIn Radio so they can listen and enjoy. This way, before in the past, you would have to be at your computer in your house or work or what have you to listen to the show.
Working out.
Now you can listen to the show working out in the gym or if you're on a bus somewhere. And,
anywhere. We're on mobile.
You're on you can listen to us if you have the technology in your phone. You can listen to us right on your phone. So this way you get to listen to Louis Live in a very convenient way. So we're very happy we're able to bring that to our audience. And
absolutely.
We know our audience has been very, very loyal to us through everything. We've interviewed Pete Rose and Roy Jones Jr. and Dan Schulman, Kurt Schilling. They've wanted more and more and more, and now we've figured out a way to give that to them. So very happy to do so.
And we're going to give you more and more from now on, too.
Yes, absolutely. All right, we're going to take a break.
And on the other side, Bob Husler from WFAN. So today, ESPN, everyone. We've got everyone for you guys
today.
Yeah,
WFAN, by the way, is the biggest sports radio station in New York. It was part of our model, actually, creating Israel Sports Radio. So this is a huge honor to have a gentleman from WFAN. We'll get into general sports, but a lot of New York sports as well.
Rangers, big win last night. I watched it, 1-0. Again, Ari, no goals. This defense and the goaltending is spectacular.
King Lundqvist.
Right.
Henry Lundqvist. All right, we're going to take a break. It's Louis Live in Israel, sportsradio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Body and Soul Gym in the heart of Talpiot. Great machines, excellent staff, and wonderful classes such as Pilates, yoga, and kickboxing. Give them a call at 02-678-8861. Once again, that's 02-678-8861. www.body-soul.co.il. Once again, that's www.body-soul.co.il. That's Body and Soul in the heart of Tapio, which is great for your body and your soul.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed Frequent Flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Shutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Terry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.israelgym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
DJ Venom, DJ Venom, DJ Venom, DJing parties throughout Israel, birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music and DJ Venom will turn your event into the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Louis Live, and before we dial up our final guest of the evening, we want to make some playoff predictions. So we're going to start in the Western Conference tonight. Spurs versus the Clippers. What do you like?
I like the Spurs.
I like the Spurs by 10 points.
Me too. I was just going to say that.
Okay.
So identical.
I'm going to say 90-80. Don't think it'll be very high scoring, but I like around that range.
I'll say 190, just so I can argue with you.
Okay. And the other game tonight is in the Eastern Conference. Your Pacers versus, not my Heat, but I do have the Heat winning the whole title. Heat are up 1-0 in the series. Must win for the Pacers?
No.
Don't think so?
Nope.
Okay.
I don't even know if they're going to win. I'll say they're going to win by 4 points, a close game. They don't need to win, though, because they can win 2 at home easily. If they do win, though, then in the next game's a must win for the Heat, because then they're down. And if they're down 2, the Heat, let's say the Pacers win this game tonight, and then they win their first game at home, the Heat will have a ton of pressure, because that game 4 will be for the Pacers to go up 3-1. If the Pacers go up 3-1, the series is over, because LeBron will choke, as usual. Dwayne Wade will not be able to carry the team, as usual. No offense, Dwayne. You haven't been able to do it for a long time. And, yeah, this is a big game for the Pacers. I'm saying Pacers by 4.
And I'm going to say that the Heat are going to win 96-91. That's just in my mind.
Okay.
I have 5 points. I think it'll be in the 90s. And it'll be a close game, I think. I think it'll be certainly closer than game one because you're right that Granger's not going to go 1 for 10.
That's not going to happen. He's gonna have a monster game. I'm a predictor he's going to have at least 20 points. That's my prediction for that. Let's do an advance for tomorrow just because. Ari, who do you got? 76ers Celtics series is tied at 1. This is a big game 3.
Yeah, it's
for
the pivotal game 3. And it's in Philadelphia.
Right.
But I like the Celtics anyways. I mean, the Celtics, like I said, it was a close game. They lost by 1 point game 2.
Right.
So they could easily be up 2-0. I think they're the better team, even with the age factor. I think the 76ers got lucky that Derrick Rose was injured. So I like the C's to win tomorrow and go up 2-1.
Right, and I'm going to go with the 76ers. I just like the way we've been playing at home. I will not be surprised if the Celtics win. With the Pacers game, it's the same thing. The Heat could win. It's the same story, guys. I'm going to go with the 76ers, but I think the Celtics might win. Ari, Lakers, Thunder.
I actually think the Lakers are going to win. I have the Thunder winning the series in 6, but I think the Lakers win tomorrow by 5 points. I think they were so embarrassed by that blowout loss to OKC. And I think Kobe Bryant will have a huge game, a statement type of game. Excuse me, I'm not going to say 5 points. Let's say 7 points. We'll go, 90 to 82. Not 83, excuse me, not 83.
Right, and I will respectfully agree with you, actually, because I agree they lost by 30. Kobe's going to do his Phil Jackson blah, blah, where he's going to call out Powell or Andrew or the bench and say that they have no heart. And they're going to come back and do the same thing they did in Game 7.
So Phil Jackson would do that from his TV set?
Maybe Phil Jackson's going to do a magic, and who knows? But
even though he's not a coach of the team anymore.
No, I'm just saying that Kobe's stealing Phil Jackson's ways.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah, no. Because that's what Phil would just mess with people's minds. And it seems like Kobe's been doing that the last couple of years, and it seems to work. I mean, on any other team, or I think about it, if a player said that no one else on the team had a heart and didn't play, I forget the wording, but it was a direct shout out to Bynum and Gasol. And for some reason, the American media didn't see it as a negative. No one said, why would Kobe say that? Everyone just put the shadow under Bosh. I didn't agree with that. I don't know why Kobe would say something like that. But anyway, to get to the prediction, I like the Lakers. Also, close game. But I like the Thunder 4-1. Let's get the series over and get the Thunder and the Spurs.
Thunder in 5 games. Wow. All right, well, we'll see. We won't have the Thunder winning. I have it at 6.
Hey, they lost to the Mavericks last year, Ari, 4-0. So
that's true.
With Phil in his last series and his clapping hands saying goodbye to his fans, 4-0. That's pretty embarrassing. Anyway, we're dialing up Bob Husler from WFAN. And Ari's going to start off and talk to him about the Rangers game. Right, Ari?
Yes. Okay. It's New York Hockey Fever. Hi, Bob.
Hello, this is Bob. How are you, Raphael?
Actually, this is Ari Louis, Raphael's co-host. He is with me here in the studio.
Hi, Bob. Thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
You're live on Louis Live and Israel Sports Radio. It's always great to have someone from WFAN, so thank you for your time. And let's just get right into it. The Rangers, it's Hockey Fever in New York. First 2 rounds, 7 games apiece. Great, thrilling series. And now they win 1-0. So talk about Kane Lundqvist. I mean, what a goaltending. You have to ride a hot goaltender to go to the NHL Finals, and probably no one better in the NHL right now. So talk about his impact on the New York Rangers.
It's just been tremendous, guys. Lundqvist is really showing that you don't have to ever worry about what was once the old label with him. Could he actually get it done deep into the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs? He had never advanced past the second round until they put away Washington just a couple of nights ago. And I think that Lundqvist and just the style that the Rangers are playing right now, under Tortorella, they've become a very defensive-minded team. They lead the league in block shots. Every game, their trademark is guys going down in front of Lundqvist and not even allowing shots to get through to Lundqvist. But when they do, he still shows you that he can make the big stop when necessary. The only other goalie right now can be considered as hot as him are goalies. Mike Smith out there, who's still alive for Phoenix, right, and Jonathan Quick, who plays for Los Angeles, who happens to be, by the way, from my hometown here in Connecticut, so I watch him carefully as well. But I don't think there's anybody right now that is on the same level as Lundqvist.
I feel so bad for Mike Smith. I'm from Arizona, so I'm a big Coyotes fan. It feels like one of those pitchers that pitches gives a 1 run and still loses 1-0. You know, Mike Smith certainly had some struggles not being bailed out by his offense. They lose, the Coyotes do, that first game, and Mike Smith still played great. So it's very frustrating. But let's stay with the Rangers. One concern I think the Ranger fans might have is maybe they play too many games, and that not only do you have 14 games the first 2 rounds, you had 2 triple overtime games. The Devils are a little fresher. The first round went 7, but the last round against the Flyers 5. Is there concern that fatigue just might set in with the Rangers and they might tire down the stretch of the series with the Devils?
No doubt, although John Tortorella would tell you differently, you have to actually look at it in a more realistic sense. I don't think there's any question that, especially if this Devils series goes deep, and if it does and the Rangers are fortunate enough to survive and then advance to the Stanley Cup Finals, if they go another 6 or 7 games, just logic tells you that it has to catch up with them eventually. Tortorella says, no way, this is something that we all play for, and at this point in the season, you should be able to get through just on adrenaline and emotion and desire. But Brad Richards last night, I thought, set a more realistic tone by saying, hey, listen, it's a very real possibility that if we continue to play deep into these series, that it's going to take its toll because of the style that they play. It's one thing to play 7 games and potentially another long series with New Jersey, but they're a physical team to begin with. As I mentioned a few moments ago, the way that they give up the body literally throughout the course of the game, I think could actually be a factor. I think Tortorella does make a valid point in that once you get to the Stanley Cup Finals, sure, emotion and adrenaline can probably carry you a good amount of the way, but I think that the Rangers last night were not as sharp physically as they had been at points in that Washington game. There were some games in that Washington series where they kind of weren't there physically. I thought they looked a little sluggish last night, yet they still managed to find a way. But to answer your question, I think it would be just silly to think that because of the style they play and just because of the grind of the Stanley Cup playoffs, you could potentially be playing in June. This is a season that started last October. You're looking at almost a year-round, challenge of trying to do this night in and night out. So I think eventually it could catch up with them. But right now they're playing on quite a roll. So it's no way, shape, or form would you say count them out because physically this all may catch up with them.
We had our ISR correspondent, NHL correspondent, Yossi G, at Game 5, and he said when that goal was scored, it was the loudest he's ever heard Madison Square Garden. Tell us your thoughts about that big goal in Game 5.
Well, that was as an explosive a moment as you can have in the Garden. And when you're talking about explosive moments in the Garden, you're talking about, I've been there for Knicks games that light the place up, and even there have been events that are non-hockey, non-basketball. You could have boxing events at Madison Square Garden. Nothing lights up like Madison Square Garden does when things are really cooking for them. But that particular night, I heard the very same kind of thing, that the roof almost came off of the place. And that's the other thing about the Rangers right now that is really lighting up the town, is that when you get the Rangers on the roll, all of New York City gets into it. And that is not the case during the regular season. There's sort of this joke that the Rangers have the most rabid fans in the metropolitan area, yet they're the same 20,000 that show up night in and night out. Great fans on a consistent basis. But now the whole city is behind them. The local newspapers, the Daily News, the Post, are devoting page after page to the Rangers and this series. And that transcends to what you feel and sense in the Garden. It just lifts it to a different level. And that night, when they were down to just basically seconds left in the game, and then they turned it around on that last-second goal after that stupid penalty by Joe Ward. Well, that I think stamped the Rangers as perhaps being a team that has a little bit of destiny on the side. And if you look back on the postseason, if the Rangers were to go on to win the Cup, the net that they scored with a few seconds to go in that game and then won it quickly in overtime, that'll be the game everybody remembers.
You know, it's a big deal when Madison Square Garden has hosted Ollie Frazier 1 and 2, and to say that was one of the best moments in Madison Square Garden, one of the loudest moments, certainly means something, and you're right on the money. If they end up winning this thing, I think they'll point to that moment and say that was a turnaround point. It's just such a thrilling thing because it happened against the Coyotes in the first round twice, where Mike gave up the goal with 14 seconds left and 5 seconds left, so I know it's like on the other side, and to see the Rangers do it, was just a thrilling thing, and I was very happy for the MSG fans that got to see that at home. Go ahead, Raphael.
Hi, Bob.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that Brad Richards scored that goal, and that's another thing that I believe is a good sign for the Rangers if you're looking at potentially this being a team of destiny, because the Rangers have spun their wheels in years trying to add pieces through the free agent market and have more often than not failed. And Richards has turned it into a pretty good pickup. He had a good game last night, and of course, just to wrap this whole thing up, again, if they go on to win the Cup, Brad Richards will be remembered for scoring the goal that really probably made it all happen.
Right, and Bob, you're on right now with Raphael. Thank you very much for joining us on this afternoon in New York, or in
My pleasure,
Connecticut.
Raphael.
Great. As we were talking about Madison Square Garden, and you mentioned the Knicks, so that's where we're going to go next with this interview. I wanted to ask you, well, there's so much stuff to talk about, but let's start off with number one priority, Mike Woodson. Is he going to return next year as a coach? Are they going to release the interim tag? What are your thoughts on Mike Woodson and his return to the Knicks next year?
I would be stunned if Mike Woodson did not return as coach of the Knicks. I think that they have reached the conclusion that he can certainly work with this group of players, and don't think that the fact that players themselves are behind Woodson, most notably Carmelo Anthony, who is a big Woodson supporter. I believe that this is definitely going to be something that gets done. The only other name out there that you could make a case for is Phil Jackson. And if you're to believe what you hear, Jackson has not really been seriously approached. That doesn't mean that there aren't people using back channels to perhaps at least gauge his interest. But for now, I don't think that there's really anything to consider other than Mike Woodson coming back. Raphael, if he were not to be retained as Knicks coach, call me back, because then we'd have something else to talk about.
Okay. You know, Bob, I just got to jump in here. I've said this for years that Phil Jackson was going to go to the Knicks. I just think he can't stay away from coaching. He needs a big market. He needs the attention. And if he could bring the Knicks a championship, he already has 11, but if he could get it to the Knicks, he would be like a god. So I think he's coming to the Knicks. I don't know if he'll. I guess it'll have to happen next season. Seems like it's the best opportunity, but I always thought he would go to the Knicks at some point.
Good point, Ari. I don't discount that possibility. I could see the day where maybe he decides to ride off into the sunset with the ultimate achievement, bringing a championship to a team that he played for the last time they won a championship. He was on both the 69 and 73 Knicks championship teams. He was hurt in 69, so he really wasn't 69-70. He wasn't really a part of it at the end, but he was on that 73 team as well. So to complete that circle and then come back and coach them to a championship would be a great story. But the other factors are he's older. I believe he just has some kind of surgery, hip surgery, back surgery, something or the other, that has him literally laid up right now, but he seems to be recovering from that okay. He's very much a West Coast person, it seems now. He seems more in tune with the whole lifestyle of the Western way of doing things, as opposed to coming back to the Northeast. But The other thing with Jackson is, he would not walk into the situation unless he felt he were in a position to succeed. And if you're looking at it from his standpoint right now, I'm not certain he believes that it would be a situation where he could succeed. The Garden is a tough place to work, and Jackson is a power guy. I mean, he likes to be involved with all the decisions. And I don't know if he would have the autonomy that he would probably desire if he were to come to the Knicks, which, again, under the Dolan regime, that's a tight regime. Everything is very controlled, and he wouldn't have the single voice that he might want. All that being said, would I be surprised if someday Phil Jackson didn't make that his last stop? No, I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and give some love to Mike Woodson. I lived in Bloomington. He's an IU former player from Bob Knight, so he learned from one of the best coaches. He did a pretty good job with the Hawks. He was really the coach who got them back into the playoff picture. He couldn't really help them advance, so they fired him. But he was the coach that really should be credited for getting that Hawks organization back on their feet after struggling for so many years. He was a mentor for a lot of those guys who are on the team now. So I say you give him a chance. I think he brought the team together. I think the guys respect him. Like I said, he played for Bob Knight. He's a very smart guy. It seems like he wants the job. That's also another issue. Phil Jackson might not want the job. You might have to convince him. This is a guy that wants the job, wants to stay in New York, and the players respect him, and that's very important. And as you mentioned, Bob, the Dolan regime, it's very difficult. Dolan, for some stupid reason, still listens to Isaiah Thomas, which no one really knows why he does that, but he does. So I don't know if Phil Jackson would tolerate that. I don't know if Phil Jackson would want to come to a place where he has to listen to stuff that really Isaiah Thomas is telling Dolan. So I think that could be an issue, but you never know. Phil didn't end his career well. We were just talking about that with our last guest, swept by the Mavericks 4-0. That was kind of his walking off, to the sunset. And that's not really a great way to end your career, especially for a champion like him. So we'll see. But the next question, the real big news right now that all New Yorkers are asking is, can this team win with Carmelo? And that's what we want to go to next. So what are your thoughts on that? We're first, just what
Well, I'll tell you what. I am not a Carmelo fan as it exists right now. He is a supreme talent. I don't have to tell either of you guys or your audience how tremendous a player Carmelo Anthony is. But to answer your question simply, as this team is constituted at the moment, I don't see it happening. Now, the next question would be, where do you go? What pieces do you bring in? Who do you bring in along with Carmelo where you can actually run an offense that doesn't necessarily always focus on him? I don't think it was a coincidence that when we were in the midst of Linsanity, that a lot of the games that the Knicks were winning with Lin running the show were with Carmelo on the sideline for a while. He demands the ball. Everything needs to run through him, and I just don't think that is going to be the formula for a championship for the Knicks. I hate to leave it open-ended. So I'll try to answer your question and answer the question. The Knicks are constituted right now, with Carmelo Anthony being the focal point at the offensive end. I don't see this as a championship team.
And Bob, we've had a lot of people on. We just had a radio affiliate from ESPN on from Denver, and you know what? They're laughing. They are loving this trade. They got a lot of great pieces in the trade. Yes, they lost to the Lakers in the first round, but the future is very, very bright in Denver. And, at the time, maybe people were not in Denver, were not very happy about the trade. They thought the guys weren't that talented. But Gallinari is a stud. I can tell you that firsthand. I've actually gone to see him play in Israel because he played for Milan in the offseason in the lockout. And, of course, he played, I believe, for Milan before he was in the NBA and Maccabi Tel Aviv, which are the huge powerhouse team here. not just here, but in Europe. One of the best teams in Europe always plays Milan. So Gallinari is a real good time player. He's not a Dirk Nowitzki type because he's kind of faster and he can dribble better, but he's a good shooter. He can shoot the three, and he was just a great addition to that team. The emergence of Ty Lawson after having a couple subpar seasons. Then the big guys down low. I think it was a great trade. The Nene trade for McGee, I thought that was a great trade. And, of course, drafting Fareed from Morehead State. That was a bold move, but it's playing out real well for them. So the future for the Nuggets is great. Bob, there's been a lot of speculation in the media that the Knicks might be pursuing a guy like Steve Nash. Like a guy like Steve Nash could bring everything together. Personally, I don't see it. He's a great player. I just don't see how if you brought him in, everyone would get a lot better. I mean, I think the team would be better, but not a championship. I don't think they're going to be a championship team. I don't see Nash, Stoudemire, and Melo playing together. That just sounds weird. And Thomas, or excuse me, not Thomas. Tyson Chandler. Sorry, blanking out. I just don't see that. I just don't. I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts on Steve Nash joining the squad next year?
Well, it's essentially, you look at what the Knicks feel is their biggest liability, and of course there's a little bit of irony in there because you have Jeremy Lin, who is still on the roster,
right?
And I am telling you that nothing. And I'm in my 50s now, guys, so I've been watching New York sports for a while. There is nothing I can recall that ever came close to the phenomenon of Jeremy Lin.
Wow.
I can't come up with very good comparisons that you have players that virtually come out of nowhere and become stars literally overnight. I've never seen anything like it, and they were winning,
right,
during the height of Linsanity. All that being said, his position, point guard, is considered to be the liability on this team, and for good reason. You were down to you started the season actually thinking that Tony Douglas was your point guard,
right, and he struggled.
Then you were down at the end to
Baron Davis, who
is, his career is probably over.
Right.
And Mike Bibby backing him up. So, okay, they need a point guard. So, Steve Nash, he's a free agent. Bring him in. I'm with you. I don't see that being the answer.
No.
I think that Steve Nash actually maybe would have been a better match had Mike D'Antoni still been the coach of the Knicks, because obviously he knows very well how to run the Mike D'Antoni system.
It's very.
I don't know if he's as good a match with Mike Woodson, but I do agree that Jeremy Lin, notwithstanding in his return, seems to be something that's going to happen. It's not a certainty, but it's probably going to happen. They need a point guard,
right?
And so, would I be again surprised if Steve Nash was the direction they turned? No. Do I think that he's the answer and can help them take that next big step? Also a no to that.
Right, and I was looking at some financial stuff a couple days ago, and the Knicks don't have, I don't think, that much money to give Nash because, of course, they're paying so much to Carmelo and Mari. So Nash still has said in the media he wants to play 3 or 4 more years. So I don't know if he'd want to take that 1.5 veterans minimum. Of course, I mean, he has a ton of money, but I don't know if I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see if Nash will sign a 3-year contract, let's say, with someone like the Heat and finish his career with them, or if he'll sign a 1-year contract for the veterans minimum, and see how it goes on that team, and then see if he's going to play for them the next year. I mean, Nash needs a championship. He deserves a championship, 2-time MVP, a real great, pure point guard, a guy who can really, when I think of Rondo reminds me of Nash, except for one big thing. Rondo can't shoot.
That's right.
Yeah, Nash really has everything. I mean, you look then at guys like Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook can't really pass that well. Chris Paul isn't really the greatest passer, but Steve Nash is the complete point guard, or what used to be a point guard. I mean, there's a new thing now. A point guard is a guy like Russell Westbrook and Chris Paul. It didn't used to be like that. I grew up with my father who was around in the Bob Cousy days, so I always listen to that kind of stuff. So a real point guard is a guy who can shoot the ball well and who can distribute the ball real well. And really, if you think about it, Steve Nash has probably been the best guard in that way, in that form, in the last 20 years. If Rondo learned how to shoot better and shoot 3-pointers better, he could do that. But I don't think that's going to happen. So it'll be very.
Yeah, and the other thing, the question you would ask yourself if it's going to be Nash is the addition of Nash going to help Amari Stoudemire help exist with Carmelo Anthony? You know what I mean? I mean, right now,
Right.
it exists Anthony and Carmelo. I'm sorry, Stoudemire and Carmelo are just not a match.
No, they're
Can
not.
the addition of Steve Nash somehow change the chemistry there? I don't know. We do know that Nash has credentials that are, beyond reproach. So the big question is, would the addition of Nash, would he be the guy who helps tilt that whatever imbalance there is with Carmelo and Amari Stoudemire? Would he be able to kind of sort through that? If the answer to that is yes, then you might be talking about a year where the Knicks could be interesting. But in the long term, again, I don't think Nash is that long-term answer.
All right, Bob, one last question before I let you go. Let's go to Major League Baseball. We had Dan Schulman earlier on the program. I asked the same question to him that I'm going to ask you right now. Mariano Rivera, 42 years old, out for the year. He says he's coming back. What are your thoughts?
I think he'll try to come back. I believe it's out of his control right now. It's a serious injury. He has a lot of work. He's going to lose a year. He's going to be a year older. He's already I mean this in a good sense, a freak. I mean that in an affectionate sense. The fact that he was doing what he was doing at his age is just beyond the pale. I would watch him early in the season and say, I mean, how does a guy his age still go out there and make it look as easy as he does, and still throw as effortlessly as he does, and with such success? But listen, it's like anything else, that once you get up to a certain level as far as age is concerned, you're going to start to break down. I remember watching Nolan Ryan throw his 7th no-hitter. I believe he was 41 at the time or something. He was in his early 40s, and he threw his 7th no-hitter. And I'm thinking, how long does this continue? Well, it wasn't long before you had a hamstring and then another muscle strain, and then you have an arm problem or a sore, and it's like a car. It's just things start breaking. And I think in this case, Mariano will absolutely, positively commit everything he has to try to come back. But right now, he may not have total control over it. He just may not be the same pitcher physically when he tries to come back, which would be a shame because you don't want his career to end that way. It's not. Even people who don't like the Yankees love guys like Rivera, who have been nothing but grace and class. And to have the final image of Mariano Rivera being one where he was sprawled in the outfield and had to be carried off on the cart, that's not how anyone wants to remember him. So I would like to see him do what he's going to do, which is work as hard as he's ever worked, and watch him try to make a comeback. And even if he weren't able to be the Mariano Rivera we remembered, the Yankees will come up with some way of letting him go out on his terms, whether that be pitch a ceremonial first pitch or whatever. Hopefully he has a very graceful and classy ending to his career, what he deserves. But I think he's facing pretty difficult odds as he tries to come back, which changes the whole dynamic of what the New York Yankees are.
Yeah, certainly the Yankees aren't the same without number 42, and hopefully he doesn't end his career at age 42. I'd love to see him get one more year. Bob, we got to run, but we certainly appreciate your time here on Louis Live and IsraelSportsRadio.com, and we would love to do it again soon in the future.
I would love to do it again, too. It was really great being on with you.
Oh, thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, have a great day, Bob.
Enjoy New York.
You too, Ari and Raphael. Thank you.
All right, be well. All right, that was Bob Huesler from WFAN. We're at the end of our program. Before we thank everyone who's been on the show today, we want to make some announcements of future guests. Del Harris, the former Coach of the Year of the NBA and former Lakers coach. He actually coached a few teams, but most notably with the Lakers, Coach Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, and Magic Johnson.
Penny Hardaway, I think.
Was
he in Orlando or whatever?
Magic Johnson in his
Houston. He was the coach at Houston.
He was the coach at Houston.
Right.
So coach a lot of different stars out there.
Hakeem Olajuwon.
Right, Hakeem Olajuwon and Magic. Again, with Magic had a couple of comebacks. His final comeback was with the Lakers under Del Harris.
Right.
And we're going to have Samaki Walker, who's probably most famous for hitting that three-pointer at the end of the second half of Game 4, which of 2002 Western Conference Finals between the Lakers and the Kings. And
that was a great rivalry.
And then, of course, Robert Horry hits that shot at the buzzer.
Yeah.
And Samaki Walker won the title that year with the Lakers. He played for a few teams in the NBA and played around the world and in Europe, but probably most famous for the O2 title. We're going to have him on as well.
And Mark Stein in about 2 weeks.
Mark Stein from ESPN will make a return appearance.
With special studio appearance by our man, Simi Rager.
Right, from
Sport 5.
Sport 5 here in Israel. I want to thank everyone who was on the show today. This was a really great show, and we certainly appreciate everyone who came out. We had 7 guests. I want to start first with Bob Rathman, the voice of the Atlanta Hawks. Larry Kruger, host of the Gary and Larry Show out in San Francisco. Dan Shulman from ESPN. Kyle Draper from Comcast Sportsnet New England. And a couple more guests. Jay Ingber, the voice of the Kansas Jayhawks. Mayan Efrat from Mariv. And Bob Huesler from WFAN Sports Radio 66. Stay tuned tomorrow for Jim Williams and much, much more. But that's it for tonight. God bless and good night.